Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel.
Welcome, everybody, to the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. And, oh, man. Yeah. Oh, well, first, let me start with this. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. How about that? Positivity first. Hope you guys had a great time with your family. Hope you ate well, had a great time. Unfortunately, you had to tune into that Lions game, which, hey, by the way, I was there. So I'll give you my firsthand experience. So whatever you felt like watching the game, just imagine how I felt in the at Ford Field. Okay, so it wasn't much better. But we got a whole crew here today on a Black Friday. Sam Flannel, my partner in crime, hanging with me today. I can't wait to get his thoughts on this as well. JB with the Lions gear still. Look at him. He's disappointed. He's not mad. He's just disappointed. The voice of reason. Lucas Klotz, Toledo's finest. Look at that man. He's ready to go. The ball nowhere. We got it. This is the cast I need today. Like on a day like
we
today.
Got the support group.
Yeah, I need my crew here, and I'm excited. Matt Nichols says Jeff is not allowed back at Ford Field. It's all his fault. Matt, I cannot confirm nor deny if I had anything to do with that.
He didn't go to the Seahawks game.
No, I did. That is true. I didn't go to a single game this year. I go to one game, and they look like absolute butt cheeks. But regardless, Lion Stroll says 0-5 on fourth, too aggressive. Yeah, guys, we're going to get into all that, too. A lot of different storylines that I want to particularly talk about. Number one being just the fourth down stuff, which we'll get to later in the show because I have some thoughts on that as well. I know a lot of you do. But first, though, at 8:15, I want to get into some of our takeaways. Just point blank, your takeaways, positive, negative, whatever it is. 8:30, John Macaroon will be joining the show. And if there's any day this man could join the show, it's today.
Yeah.
It is a perfect day for John Macaroon to talk to us because he'll be the doc, again, giving us a dose of medicine on a pretty depressing Friday. He'll be joining the show. 8:45, we'll talk Jared Goff. Yep, you guys knew we were going to do it. Jared Goff. Concern level, kind of his play over the last two games and kind of the outlook moving forward for the rest of the season. And then, of course, in the second hour, we'll talk some about the NFL schedule, give our picks and all that. But first, Sam, how was your Thanksgiving, number one? Let's try to get to the positive stuff and then just your, I guess, immediate reaction to what you watched yesterday against the Packers, Lions versus Packers.
My Thanksgiving was, unfortunately, like a lot of Thanksgivings have been as a Lions fan, not the best. I mean, the food was good and everything, and Michigan basketball got a big win over Stanford, kind of avoided a disastrous start in the non-conference, but of course that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. Maybe a few people, maybe Chuck Brewer does, but I'm just gonna get right into something really quick, if you guys don't mind. Today is one of those days where we all, Lions players, Lions coaches, Lions fans, have to eat a big slice of humble pie, and that includes myself. Because on the last show, I was screaming, caping up for one of my favorite players, Aiden Hutchinson, and even he let me down. And I just want everybody to know that I am not immune from this. I caped up for him hard, and he let me down. Was he the reason they lost? Was he the reason the defense struggled? Absolutely not. But he didn't make enough impactful plays to, I would say, swing the game when he may have had a couple of chances. And furthermore, Aiden Hutchinson, he is nowhere in Nick Bosa's league. He is nowhere in Micah Parsons' league. As of this moment, you can't even say that he is as good as Rashawn Gary. But when you watch the Green Bay Packers, Rashawn Gary had 3 sacks. He absolutely wrecked that game in so many different ways. It was actually kind of hard to watch. But Rashawn Gary, he has Preston Smith and he has Kenny Clark. Micah Parsons, if you watch the Cowboys game, he had a sack and a half. He wrecked that game. But also, on their defensive line, they had 4 sacks total. They gave up 10 points, and Jonathan Hankins had 2 sacks. Dante Fowler had a half a sack. They also have Dorrance Armstrong, Sam Williams, and Osa, their defensive tackle. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name. The 49ers, did you catch that act? Nick Bosa had 2 sacks, but Javon Hargrave had a sack and a half. Deshaun Gibson had a sack. Eric Armstead had a sack. And Kevin Givens had a half a sack. And oh, by the way, they also just acquired Chase Young and only gave up 6 offensive points to the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions, on the other hand, they had no sacks. Aiden Hutchinson didn't have a sack. He also has Aleem McNeil. But besides for that, and this further illustrates why everybody wanted Brad Holmes to make a move at the deadline, who do they have besides for Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil? Goober Pyle and Boo Boo the Fool at this point. So Aiden Hutchinson did not play well yesterday. He did not have the impact that I would have wanted. But all of those other guys who I mentioned that are right now better than Aiden Hutchinson, they are better than Aiden Hutchinson, and they have exponentially more help than Aiden Hutchinson. That's a problem. So I'm going to eat some humble pie when it comes to Aiden. But he wasn't the only issue.
No, and I agree. And Sam, look at that. And by the way, for Sam to call out in a friendly way, Aiden Hutchinson, I give you props, Sam, because you are right. He's not the reason. I'm not even going to go there today. But we'll talk a little more about that defensive line. Whatever we can't get to today, we'll get to Monday because we still have another week to, talk about the game and preview the next game they got on the road to New Orleans. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one too. But regardless, let's not even get there. They did not deserve to win that game. You guys, watching the football game, they did not deserve to win that at all with how they played. Fun fact, though, Lions haven't won on Thanksgiving since 2016 when they beat the Vikings 16-13. It's funny, I started going to Thanksgiving game with my dad, my sister, my younger brother in 2017. So I've yet to see a win on Thanksgiving. So I'm pissed. I am very pissed. So is my dad. He's been a Lions fan his entire life. That man has had to endure a lot. And every Thanksgiving game he goes to, he leaves disappointed. It's just a rerun every time we go. He's just
insanity.
Yes, it is.
It's insanity.
It really is. It's been 7 long years on Thanksgiving, and the Lions fans unfortunately have to wait another year for a potential win. Fun fact: I brought this up a couple days ago before the game. Jordan Love is now 3-5. Remember the stat I brought up when throwing 30+ times in a football game? Before he was 2-5, the record with a 9 passing touchdowns to 10 interception TD to interception ratio. Now it's 12 passing TDs to 10 interceptions, 3-5 record. So the Lions actually made something happen that usually does not happen, which was they allowed Jordan Love to beat them.
Oh, yeah.
And we said it on the show. I talked about the secondary, my confidence level. Hey, Jordan Love, you saw what happened at Lambeau. Just make him beat you. Well, he did. So the Lions, and by the way, Derek Barnes brought this up, talking to Matt Broder, and I thought it was a great point. The Lions haven't been the Lions over the last 2 seasons. This year they're 8-3. They're one of the better teams in the NFC. Whoever plays them now, Sam, they're going to bring it, especially NFC North opponents. You got divisional opponents. You just got the Bears or the Packers back-to-back games. So they're getting every team's best effort, so the margin for error is so small. If the Lions are shooting themselves in the foot, you're not going to win these games. It doesn't matter who it is. We can look at the schedule and say, well, on paper, it's the easiest schedule in the league. It doesn't matter. You got the Saints, and if you play like this against the Saints, that's a loss. You play like this against the Broncos, that's a loss. You play like this twice against the Vikings, those are losses. And I haven't even got to Dallas yet.
Yeah.
Dallas, by the way, who I like to poke a lot of fun at, but Dallas looks good.
They do.
And that defense looks good.
Yes.
Dak Prescott looks good. There's a lot of things you could talk about, but the biggest frustrating part is they allowed 20 points in the first quarter. That's the most the Packers have scored in the first quarter.
The Packers aren't a first-half team. That's what they're known for, is slow starts.
It's the most they've scored since October 19th, 2014.
I believe Aaron Rodgers won the MVP that year, too.
Yeah, so again, this has not happened for the Packers to score 20 points in the fourth quarter in almost 10 years, and it happened on Thanksgiving. That is disgusting. And by the way, I want to get to more of the takeaways at 8:15, just kind of in depth, but just overall, am I going to hit the panic button? No, I wouldn't go there, but these last 2 games have been bad. Despite you've won one of them, hitting the panic button in my eyes would say, well, the season's screwed. This team can't do nothing. I don't want to go that far yet, but there's problems with this football team. And I know Dan Campbell talked about some of his mistakes, Jared Goff, but they also phrased it like, yeah, I'm not going to hit the panic button. There's still, we still are a good football team. We still, have won 8 games. I get all of that, but guys, context, that Bears game, you won, but really, I get this is the National Football League. It's hard to win. I get all that.
It was cute for 1 week.
It's cool, yeah, but that cannot happen. The Lions have not played. If you really look at their schedule in the last couple of games for the Detroit Lions, to me, Sam, you look at, Green Bay, they lost clearly. Chicago, they didn't play well. Los Angeles, the offense played well. You have Las Vegas, which they didn't play well until later in the game when they started scoring and they went up. But that first quarter, you guys watched that Raiders game, it was bad. You go to Baltimore, they didn't play well. I mean, they haven't played well in 5 games? I mean, as a complete game, offensively, defensively, special teams. They have not played a complete game, complimentary football, in I'd say about 5 games since Tampa Bay, when David Montgomery was not there in the second half and Jared Goff had a big game, and of course they won on the road against Tampa Bay. That was a good win. But since then, Sam, they have not played a complete game. It's been the offense is showing out. Well, the defense is stinking. Well, the offense is stinking. Like, you got to get your crap together, especially before the playoffs.
I promise you that I am going to get more in depth on that in the next segment, because I've got a lot to say about the Lions and their standing in the NFL and all of that. But yesterday, it was just a bad game overall. It got to the point, and a lot of people, I know this is going to sound harsh, but I think a lot of you deep down will agree with me. It got to the point where I'm just like, Packers, just end the misery already, because the Lions, you can't just keep getting away with playing like this. It almost got to the point where the Lions still being in the game almost annoyed me to some extent, because it's like they're turning the football over 3 times and they did not force a single turnover. In the last game, they turned the ball over 4 times, and it looked like for a second that the Lions actually had a chance to maybe win both of those games. And oh, by the way, a fake punt, which we're going to talk about more later, is just as bad as a turnover when you do it that deep in your own territory. So at some point, you can't just fuck around that much and get away with it. And at some point, you need to not get away with it. And the Lions, here's the reality. If they play like they have the last couple of games, all of the things that we hope that they can accomplish, all of the things that we all think that they can accomplish, all of the things that they all in the room believe that they can accomplish, Thanos snapped away. Dead serious. They got to get it together.
Yeah, the rest of the schedule, and by the way, that Dallas game at the end of the year, right before New Year's Day, that's going to tell us a lot. Because, like, these games, I mean, yeah, you beat the Broncos, you beat these teams. Like, again, you're going to be favored in most of these games. But that Dallas game, that's, to me, a huge test. Not just for the team, but for certain players, which I'll get to later in the show. Because, listen, I could say all I want about Dallas. You're tied with them now for a record. So they're on your ass. So, we could say, well, Dak's this, Dak's that. They're 8-3. And I don't care. Again, I can come at the Dallas Cowboys for who they played. Who cares? They're 8-3. So, like, I can't really say much now. They're tied with the Lions. So, got to get your crap together. Let's go to break here. When we come back, I'll get into some of my takeaways. And, again, there's a lot to get to here. And I got some stats I want to bring up to Lions fans on why, the Lions do have to get their crap together. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Hamlin Pub. Because, guys, have you wanted to be at a bar where you're known as a regular? After watching yesterday, you might want to go to a bar more often, to be honest with you. We have just a place for you. It's Hamlin Pub. Whether you're enjoying half-off pizza on Thursdays, game day specials available during all Michigan sports, Hamlin Pub is the place. Visit the location today and experience your new favorite pub for all things sports.
Now, coming to Woodward Sports, Woodward and Main Street, the Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle D. Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.
We've just received word. The world's cannabis supply has vanished. The public is outraged and has taken to the streets in response to this tragedy. The individual responsible acted alone, and we can only hope they will make things right soon.
Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel.
Join Woodward Sports and Long Drink live every home game for the official Lions VIP tailgate party. It's at Eastern Market in Shed number 5, and it is always a bash, starting at 9:30 a.m. until game time. The official Lions tailgate is back and better than ever. How would you like to pregame it with Woodward Sports and be treated like a VIP? Food, beverages, and entertainment all included. Get your tickets online today at bullseyeeventgroup.com or win some from Woodward Sports today. Just subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on IG, and direct message Lions VIP.
Man, oh man. If we're talking about hitting the panic button, at the very least, guys, we got to hit the concern button.
Yes.
Like, is that fair? Like, maybe not the panic, but, like, very concerned button.
Depends on, in my opinion, what your outlook is on the season.
That's fair.
If you're thinking Super Bowl or anything like that, yeah, it's panic time. If you're thinking playoff win, divisional, like win the division, you're concerned. Yes.
Okay, that's where I'm at. Because you know how I feel, and I never picked this team to go to the Super Bowl. I never picked them in the NFC Championship game, but I did pick them to win a playoff game. And if you play like that, you ain't winning a playoff game. Like, it's very simple. In the Lions right now, and this is a stat that, you know, I did some research on, and I thought it was interesting. Right now, excuse me, currently in the NFL, the Lions are 9th in total turnovers. So let's go through the teams who are around them, shall we? Teams with more turnovers than the Detroit Lions. I'll go through them. The Lions have 17 right now, combined, interceptions and fumbles, okay? Ahead of them are the New York Jets, the Kansas City Chiefs, which have Mahomes, so they're the exception, because, again, that guy can overcome anything. The Chicago Bears, the Buffalo Bills, the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Washington Commanders. Do you like the tier they're in?
Some teams you're kind of like, all right, whatever. But even when you look at the Cleveland Browns, it's like they have an elite defense. Yes,
that can bail them out. Yeah, the other exception you bring up would be, you brought it up, the Browns and the Chiefs. The other teams, the Bills, we know the storyline of the Bills. They're back, but the turnovers have been a problem for them. That's the echelon you're in. Now, the team tied with you are the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's another team that's right there. They're 7-3 on the season so far, but they have 17 total turnovers. You're in a realm of teams you don't want to be in. The Philadelphia Eagles, the San Francisco 49ers, they all have less turnovers than you. Even, the Dallas Cowboys, who I poke a lot of fun at, less turnovers. So again, it starts there. These are self-inflicted wounds. It's very simple. You look at their turnover differential. They're tied for 17th in the NFL in turnover differential. I'll go through the teams around them as well, because that's not a great thing. You look at turnover differential. The Lions are -2. Teams that are ahead of them, I'll bring a couple of them up. Right around the same area as them. The Los Angeles Rams have a -2. Turnover differential. The New York Jets have a -2 turnover differential. The Arizona Cardinals have a -2 turnover differential. The Green Bay Packers have a -3 turnover differential. You see, like, the conversation you're in, you're turning the ball over too much. And the defense isn't creating turnovers to balance that out. At least the Dallas Cowboys, we can joke all day about Dak Prescott early in the season and his interceptions. That Cowboys defense, Deron Bland is 6th game with a pick 6? Yeah. Like, it helps when your defense is turning the ball over. The Lions defense is not doing that. So when the offense, which a lot of the time you are relying on this offense, they turn the ball over, you're screwed. Again, the margin for error is very, very small. That's the only way this offense can beat itself. Turning the ball over, especially against inferior teams. You cannot do it. It's very simple as far as the offense goes. Last 2 games, Sam Flannel, self-inflicted wounds. That's been the storyline. And when you're turning the ball over and your defense is giving up points, and you get down 23-6 at halftime, it's hard to stick with what you do best, which is running the football, establishing play action. They can't do it. It's hard when you're down. You get predictable. Dan Campbell talked about that as well. But that's not the only problem. That's offensively, right? Self-inflicted wounds. You could talk about the offensive line. I'm not going to go there today. This offensive line's been a reason they've won a lot of games. They didn't play well yesterday, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, should we be concerned about the offensive line? No, they'll be all right. They'll be fine. Panay and Taylor Decker didn't have a great game, but they'll be all right moving forward. The pass rush defensively, that's a problem. A big problem, actually. And Aleem McNeil's now in concussion protocol, who right now...
Alex Anzalone.
Anzalone, which, oh my God, 2 and 3 in sacks. Right there. Thank you, Lucas, for that. Aleem McNeil, he's second on their team in sacks, second on their team in TFLs. I'll tell you what, Bruce Irvin ain't going to save the season. James Houston will make an impact, but the extent of the impact we don't really know because, again, he's coming off a severe injury, and he's only played in 9 career NFL games. So is James Houston going to come save the season? He could. I'm not banking on it. I think he'll be help. But he's, again, coming off a severe injury. It's unfair for us, for a guy who's played in 9 career NFL games, to be like, this guy's going to save it. This guy's going to bring a resurgence to this pass rush. I don't know. And there's other guys that have to play better. You mentioned it, Aiden Hutchinson, of course, and I'll give you that. But those are the 2 biggest concerns for me. It's the lack of pass rush in this offense, self-inflicted wounds. Because I'm not saying the offense is a problem. Relax. They've been the best unit all year. But self-inflicted wounds, turning the ball over, and it starts with the quarterback. But also, it's not just him. There's other things that are happening, and you see other players turning the ball over. That's a problem. So shooting yourself in the foot, and you're putting this defense in already compromising positions, and when you can't get a pass rush, your secondary looks worse than it does. So it is. And when your head coach is making errors, which Dan Campbell, for the most part this year, has not done that, it adds on to it. So, again, there's a lot of things to get to, Sam Flannel, but those are only a couple of the things I took away.
Oh, yeah. So this is another one, and I feel like I'm going to say this a lot. A lot of you aren't going to like this, but I just have to say it. And it's kind of one of those things where I've talked about it in the back. I haven't wanted to go here, but I just have to go here. When you lose a game like that, and by you, I'm talking to the Detroit Lions, us fans, and I think we have to ask the question, are the Lions a great team, or are they kind of a easy schedule merchant at this point? I think you have to ask that question, and I believe also a couple other things. The Lions have 0 chance at getting the 1 seed at this point. Absolutely 0. At this point, they don't even look like they're playing the same sport as the Philadelphia Eagles, and certainly not the San Francisco 49ers. My goodness, did they look dominant. You no longer have a right to thumb your nose up at the Minnesota Vikings in your own division. You can't just call that division over just yet at this point, and I thought that was a lock for a long time. I have to kind of take some accountability and be like, I don't think that anymore. I don't think the Lions are inevitable anymore, which is what I called them after the victory against the Chicago Bears. You no longer even have the right to assume that you're no doubt going to get the 3 seed, even if you win the division. You can put that to bed with a victory at New Orleans, but are you really going to beat New Orleans? Can you really say with confidence that we're going to go into New Orleans, go into the Superdome, and beat them? I'm not so sure. And I'll tell you what, I don't even know if they're going to win one playoff game this year. You can have those questions at this point because of how badly they played against the Green Bay Packers and how, I would say, much they've been playing with fire over the last almost month and a half at this point. And that is fair, by the way. And also, when I call them maybe a schedule merchant, here's why. Here's what some of their wins have been against. The 4-6 Atlanta Falcons with Desmond Ridder. The 5-6 Packers on the road, which looks like a more impressive win retrospectively, but still, that's still a team with a losing record, even though they just came into our house and beat us. The 1-9 Carolina Panthers. The 4-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield. The 5-6 Raiders, who at the time were starting Jimmy G. The 4-6 Chargers, who have the worst pass defense in the NFL. And the 3-8 Bears. And furthermore, I talked about them playing with fire in the last, I would say, 5 games. You mentioned it, Jeff. I want to get a little deeper into that. The game against Baltimore was a total team debacle. They lost 38-6. You can live with one of those a year, especially when you have to go on the road to a contending team. You even look at the Raiders game. In that game, they were fortunate to even win that game when I really lay this out. They lost the turnover battle 3-1, including a pick 6, including a red zone fumble. And, oh, by the way, Devontae Adams got loose for 2. Like he was wide open for 2 long touchdowns, and if Jimmy G hits him even once, maybe we're talking about a different conversation. And if Jimmy G hits him twice, the Raiders probably win that game. They beat the Chargers. Obviously, that was a very impressive offensive performance, but they gave up 38 points to the Chargers, including a touchdown on the last 5 Chargers drives. If the Chargers could get a stop, then maybe we're having a different conversation about this team, and maybe they win that game. They lose to the Bears. I mean, they don't lose to the Bears. They should have. They beat the Bears, but Goff throws 3 interceptions. Craig Reynolds fumbles a kickoff that immediately leads to a short field and a Bears touchdown. And by the way, the Lions were down by 12 very, very late in the 4th quarter. They could have easily lost to the Bears. And oh, by the way, they did lose to the Packers. The Lions could have gone 0-5 in their last 5 games. They are fortunate as hell to be 3-2. Did they have a lot to do with it? Did they play some good situational football. Like, their offense was phenomenal against the Chargers. The offense was phenomenal in the last 2 drives against the Bears when they absolutely had to. My point is, this team has merchanded a lot of wins off of an easy schedule, and they've also not looked that impressive over the last 5 games. So, to me, they're not in the same tier as the Cowboys or Eagles, not even close. They're not even in the same tier as the Cowboys right now. And going forward, we are going to find out whether this is actually a good team or a great team or a good team that was also a schedule merchant. And that's just the reality at this point.
And to your point, and by the way, very well said, Flannel.
Thank you.
You were preaching there. And I want to bring this point up, Lucas, before I get to you, because I want your thoughts on it. The reason why I brought the turnover differential up, because that to me is it's a problem. This team's turning the ball over too much. The teams that are around the Lions in turnover differential, the Eagles are -1, the Lions are -2, and the Kansas City Chiefs are -5. So you could argue, well, Jeff, the Eagles are -1. Well, Lucas, the Eagles and the Chiefs play in the Super Bowl, and they have a lot more proven talent. Yeah, so, like, those guys can slide with
a schedule too.
They do. But your thoughts on what transpired yesterday?
Look, I'm not hitting the panic button on the season because, like I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I do not think the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl. This is not their year to win the Super Bowl. I think the Lions are still going to win the division, and I still think it's very likely they win a wild card game.
Agreed.
But what scared the shit out of me about this game is the legitimacy of this team a year or 2 down the road. Because I'm sorry, and you guys know I'm a golf guy.
You are.
And you can look at the stat sheet, and you can see 300-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. You can look at all of that. But if you really look at that game, what scared me the most is Jared Goff's inability to create plays when they need to be made with his feet.
Yep.
Like Jared Goff... This is where I'm starting to get scared of, is he the guy that, if he re-signs, is going to be the guy to take us to the Super Bowl? Or is he going to kind of keep us around this level? Because I don't care. Dak Prescott yesterday looked like a whole different tier than Jared Goff over the last 2-3 games. And then you go to the defensive side of the ball. You can get mad at this defense, but this defense is what it is. Like, I was not surprised at this defense yesterday. I don't think many people should have, because you saw what happened in Chicago. You saw what happened against LA. Justin Fields last week looked like Cam Newton in his prime, and Jordan Love looked like Patrick Mahomes this week. So this defense at this point, I think you just have to accept the defense. And I think the offense has to just take that as a role and realize that we cannot be turning the ball over. The offense's whole thing is you have to be able to manage the game. And over the last 5 weeks, they have not been able to manage the game. They got the time of possession, they've lost it twice in a row. The Lions, if they do not control the time of possession, they're going to lose games. So when you talk about, okay, now they're going up against mid and even below mid teams, and they're losing the time possession. They're creating turnovers. What happens when they do that against a legitimate team on the road in big situations?
You're cooked.
You're cooked. Absolutely cooked. And so I'm not saying, oh my God, Lions, you need to hit that this team sucks, because at the end of the day, the goal of this season was to win a playoff game and win the division. I still think that's going to happen. But where you see where the season was going, Lions fans that were drinking the Kool-Aid like a lot of us, we're sobering up now. That's what it is. It's just a sobering day. I don't think it's time to be fire this person, fire this person,
right.
Fire this person, but it's really start time to taking critical decisions and being like, all right, where does this team need to improve? Because obviously it's not where they're supposed to be if they want to be considered legitimate contenders in the NFL.
Well, and this has to be a wake-up call, because you look at their schedule moving forward. It's not as easy as people might think. Us Lions fans, I'm not saying we are. We no longer have the right to scoff at the New Orleans Saints, especially when you're going on the road and they're fighting for a division themselves, and they're maybe looking to overtake the Lions for the 3 seed. That's going to be tough. We don't have a right to scoff at going to Chicago, a team that probably should have beat us in our house, and who has Justin Fields, who continues to prove his running is a problem for the Lions defense. He did it last game, and Jared Goff is going outdoors in December, where he is known to struggle throughout his career in a cold environment like Chicago. We no longer have the right to scoff at the Denver Broncos, who have turned their season around and are looking pretty good as well. And certainly not the Minnesota Vikings, who the Lions have 2 games against, who are looking to steal this division from the Lions at this point. And right now, with that loss that the Lions just suffered yesterday, they're probably cheering, looking like they have a path. And oh, by the way, they play the Bears at home on Monday Night Football, which should be a win for them as well. And we certainly do not have any right to scoff at the Dallas Cowboys at this point.
No.
And if you do, if you're one of those people that still does, I can't share a space with you at this point because you're just delusional. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying this was a wake-up call for the Lions, and I hope they use it as such. Do I think that they necessarily won't? No, I think there's a chance that they do right the ship, but they have to actually right the ship. You can't just keep playing with fire, which they have been, and they got burned. Hopefully in the long run, it'll be a good thing.
Yeah, the Packers have a pulse. And you allowed them to have a pulse, like that game last night. I mean, I watch it. I do this when the Lions lose. It's just something I like doing. It's weird, but I like to watch Jordan, like the opposing team's press conferences whenever they, lose a game, just to get like a feel of what's going on. By the way, it just made me mad to see Matt LaFleur just so jolly after, he's just like, Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. He was so happy coming off what, especially what we saw earlier in the year. He was just so mad at that presser. So that was a little disappointing as a Lions fan. But Jordan Love, they talked a lot about now, hey, let Packers fans believe this team can make the playoffs. You gave them that pulse.
And they should believe they should make, they can make the playoffs.
But the Lions' job was to step on their throat.
I know.
That was your job. Now, I don't want people to get carried away with it, although we are talking about things that are disappointing. I don't want people to assume that we think the season's over. No, the season's not over. You have 6 games left. The Lions can win a majority of those games. I get all that. But if you watch the last 2 games and you're going to sit there and say, well, we're 8-3.
The last 4.
The last 4 games.
The last month of the season.
Last month.
And that's why, I'm sorry to cut you off here.
No, go.
But people are going to be like, you just have to fix the mistakes. The mistakes have been happening for a month now. The Lions, I guarantee you, have been trying to fix these mistakes. Sometimes the issues with the team are just their weaknesses. It is what it is. That's why I'm saying this defense, it's not a good defense. That's why I'm not surprised why they're out there just nuking the Lions secondary right now. Because if you look around it, what personnel do the Detroit Lions truly have? And it was cool. They were playing above their ceiling for a while, but at the end of the day, it's the NFL. Talent is going to show. If you have elite talent, it's going to carry you through a season. If you have good talent, it'll get you through part of it, and then eventually there's going to be holes. Once you start adding injuries, the Lions' defense was good. They got a couple injuries to James Houston, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley. All right, now you're talking about defense that's supposed to be good, and they're probably around mid. That when the offense plays mid or below mid, now you just have a mid team, in my opinion. I'm not saying the Lions are, but when they don't show up against mid teams and they play like that, you can see the end of the season when they start playing elite teams consistently, that's where their weakness is going to be. I don't think this is just fixable things because at the end of the day, in my opinion, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's personnel. That's the difference for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing defensively, which I want to get to more next week because we could really spend a good 15, 30 minutes on just the defense. And I want to preface it by, before we, I don't want to give too much away. The defense, there's a lot of things you could point to, but I don't think it's all one or the other. I don't think it's all Aaron Glenn, and I don't think it's all personnel.
Yeah.
I think, and then the people that are like, well, it's all Aaron Glenn, he has enough guys, you're incorrect.
Yes.
So I just want to make that very clear. It's definitely a little bit of both, which, we'll see how that trends. But we'll go to break, we come back. Let's talk to John McEnroe because, again, we need the voice of reason today because we already have JB, our voice of reason, but John McEnroe he's at Ford Field. He's talking to the players. He knows what he's talking about. So let's go to break here. When we come back, we'll be joined by John McEnroe. But first, we got to hear about our friends from Premier Pet.
Yes, Premier Pet. Even when I'm upset about Lions losses, I still use Premier Pet for my golden retriever Jake and my orange cat Milo. I give them all of the best toys, treats, and food from Premier Pet. When it comes to your pet, don't settle. Give your pet the best like I give my pet the best. Premier Pet Supply is hands down Michigan's best pet store. Family owned and operated for over 30 years. 13 Metro Detroit locations, over 60 brands of food, lowest prices, and curbside home delivery. Premier Pet Supply, give your pet the best. Visit their website at premierpetsupply.com.
Come hang with the Woodward Sports Crew all throughout football season on Saturdays and Sundays. Join our college football and Detroit Lions live watch parties.
Inside the 5, caught, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
With money on the line, featuring different special guests and surprises. Start times will vary depending on the game. Only on our Woodward Sports YouTube channel. Brace yourselves, Detroit. As the sun begins to set, two of Woodward Sports' brightest young stars will be taking the mic for a brand new show. Woodward Nights with Spooner and Broder. The dog days in Detroit are over, and the boys are unleashed. Join in on the banter and hop on the bandwagon of the #1 night show on the internet. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. Woodward Nights with Spooner and Broder.
How would you like to win a 100K Vegas getaway? Take your friends and live it up in the city that never sleeps. It's the Centron Energy Drink It and Live It sweepstakes. Purchase a 24-pack today and enter for your chance to win. Register at drinkcentron.com/Vegas and buy Centron at your local Myers store. It's Centron, the healthier energy drink with great taste. Look good, feel great, and be the best version of yourself. Once again, that website, drinkcentron.com/Vegas.
You know what time it is. John Macaroon joins the show. Typically it's Thursday, but we had Thanksgiving, so how fitting. He joins us Friday after a game day. Perfect timing. John Macaroon, my guy. Welcome to the show, my man. Hope all is well. By the way, if you have not seen a single John Macaroon segment, what the hell are you doing? John is the voice of reason for the show, and he's one of my good friends, one of our good friends. John, host of course, the Detroit Sports Podcast and publisher of All Lions. John, we'll start off, before we get into the details of the game, can I just get your reaction? You were there. Some of your takeaways from what happened yesterday.
Yeah, happy Black Friday, everybody. Real fast, just like everybody else this morning. Probably need a little what they call hair of the dog.
Hell yeah, John! Don't blame you.
Wake you up a little bit.
What the fuck was that? Yeah, that was, that was not something that Lions fans had wanted to see. Obviously, going into that game, Lions have lost six consecutive games on Thanksgiving. They wanted to show out in front of a national TV audience, obviously a division game. I was disappointed that they played at a level that was really beneath what they were capable of. But like you guys said, voice of reason, it was on short rest. They did play a tough physical game against the Bears. Not to make excuses, but I just think that there was a level of play there that you could see the spark was not there. They were not flying around to the football the way they had been. And I think that playing 3 games in 11 days took a toll on this team. I mean, you looked at it right from the beginning. The first play of the game, Jordan Love goes deep to Christian Watson for a 53-yard bomb and set the tone right there from there. And I just think that the Lions were not ready to go for this contest. And I think that in a game like that, it's all about being focused and playing mentally strong. And they just didn't execute at a high enough level to win that game.
All right, so maybe this is panicking a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on this and tell me if I'm either right or wrong. When I watched the Lions yesterday and what I've been seeing lately from the Eagles, 49ers, and Cowboys, it feels to me like the Lions are a level below all 3 of them and multiple levels below the Eagles and the 49ers. Am I wrong, or am I right to believe that?
Yeah, look, when you look at pure talent, yeah, the Lions do not stack up with the Eagles and the 49ers. But I do think that we are overreacting a little bit to this one loss. It is an 8-3 team, and you look at it with full preparation. This next period of time for the Lions, I think, will be critical in these next stretch of games. But I do think when you look at how the Lions are built and what they're trying to aim for, they believe that they play well together as a team collectively. And when they clean up the mistakes, when they play better, and I think that the biggest topic, one of the biggest reasons that the Lions lost is the play of Jared Goff. He hasn't played to the level that he has earlier this year. And if he's going to play like that, I think I got into a discussion on my podcast about Jared Goff and the turnovers. And I had said on this week's episode, I'm not concerned about the interceptions. I'm concerned about the fumbles. When he got into trouble with the Rams, it was because he kept putting the football on the ground. And you saw it there. If the offensive line doesn't block well for Jared Goff, he gets happy feet, and then you start to see him scrambling, which is a sight I don't want to see. And it's
like
easy
watching
for
a baby
the
deer
opposition.
being born.
Yeah, exactly. It's
bro.
clumsy. It's absolutely, it's not something that is going to be advantageous for the Lions. But I look at it, Sam, yes, naturally speaking, the Eagles and the 49ers are very talented and they play at a high level. But at the same time, Detroit collectively, when they play well, they can play at a very high level, and they still have a lot of room for improvement. We all think that the Lions are taking this football team into the postseason. They still have 6 games to improve, clean it all up, and I do think that when the time comes, the Lions will be playing their best football. I don't think you're going to see games like that for the remainder of the season, but it is concerning because the aspects of this football team that you need to be stepping up to win playoff games wasn't there against the Packers.
And I'm glad you brought up Jared Goff, John, because I know we've had a lot of conversations about him, and I don't want to use this data because there's a big sample size of him in Detroit playing really well, but you kind of mentioned it. Over the last 2 games, the man has 6, if you want to put it like this, it kind of sounds rough, but 6 turnovers in 5 days. We could go with 2 games, though. It sounds a little better that way. 2 games, 6 turnovers. It's his worst stretch of football since 2019. And I went back and I did the research because I'm like, wait, has he ever had a 2-game stretch like this? He had a 2-game stretch in 2019 with the Rams where he had 7 turnovers. He had 3 turnovers against the Browns September 22nd, 2019, including 2 interceptions and a fumble. And then he followed that up with 3 interceptions and a fumble against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So 7 in 2 games in 2019, 6 in 2 games now with the Detroit Lions. Again, Jared with Detroit, this has been kind of a different Jared. Everyone talks about his growth as a quarterback. But again, John, people bring up the offensive line, but I'm willing to give the offensive line a pass because for the most part, they've been a reason why they've won games. So I can't look at one bad game from the offensive line and go, well, they're the reason we lost. No, is this something that we should be concerned about with Jared moving forward? Do you think this is just a hiccup in the middle of a season for him?
Oh, Jared Goff talk, another hit, baby. Oh.
And John, can you and for the people that really do want to extend this, man, does it maybe raise questions at this point? Is that fair?
Oh, okay. That's part of the reason why Sean McVay got so upset. He led the NFL in turnovers over a couple-year stretch towards the tail end of his tenure. Look, you go as your quarterback goes. If Jared Goff is going to play like that, look, you guys, early on in the game, you saw it was back and forth. The Packers scored first, then the Lions. And then what happens on the next drive? Boom, there was a fumble for a touchdown, and you're already in the hole. So I look at it with Jared Goff, and he's got to clean it up. He has to protect the football. But here's the reason why you can give him a little bit of a pass is that the offensive line really did miss Jonah Jackson. He's an integral part of that offensive line. They tried Colby Sorsdahl. Unfortunately, he got benched. He was doing some things that you don't want to see from a rookie in terms of, not blocking effectively, not understanding exactly his assignments. And you realize, okay, for Jared Goff to be successful, he needs a clean pocket. Any quarterback that has that much pressure coming at him is going to be a little bit unsettled. And Jared Goff simply can't evade those defenders. But I do think what you can see when you guys watch the All-22, because I definitely took notes watching that, he needs to recognize better where the blitz is coming from. If you're not recognizing where those attackers are coming from, then you're a sitting target, you're a sitting duck. So absolutely, Jared Goff. This is the reason why people would not pay him $50 million, because when he goes bad, it's really bad, and it's something he's going to correct. Obviously, they're going to see the offensive line has to play better. But guys, it was an outlier. Taylor Decker had a bad game. You guys saw Penei Sewell getting pushed back a little bit. You saw a performance by that offensive line that was drastically different than what we had seen before. I think collectively that offense will improve. And yes, Jared Goff won't be looking like the guy that got booted from LA in the next stretch of games.
And that's why I asked the question, because people would say, well, Jeff, how can you give the offensive line a pass? Well, John, you know this, and you're watching NFL. Not everything's going to be perfect. This offensive line is not going to be elite every single game. There's going to be hiccups. And to me, it's up to the quarterback to kind of find ways to kind of, navigate through that. But, Lucas, what do you got for him?
Yeah, John, so basically, I'm going to be devil's advocate here. And a lot of this has to do with my perspective on a Panic Friday, a true definition of a Black Friday. This is a gloomy Friday in Detroit. But why should I not be panicked if the Lions have looked this way for a month, playing against very mid to below mid teams? They played against the Raiders, the Chargers, the Bears, and the Packers. Why do I not need to be panicked when they are playing that way against solid teams? And then when it comes to time for the playoffs, they have to play Dallas, they have to play San Francisco, they have to play Philadelphia. Why should I not be panicked about this team when it's time for the rubber to hit the road against teams that right now are playing good on offense, defense, and special teams? Did you see San Francisco's punter last night caused 2 muff punts just off the way he kicks the ball? And I know it sounds stupid, but they're rolling on all 3 levels right now. And the Lions, I know there's still December to go, but the Lions, out of those 3 teams, they look the absolute worst when it comes to the top tier of the NFC. Why should I not be panicked?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we all have big expectations for the Lions. And I think what we can clearly see is this is not a Super Bowl caliber team. This is a team that needs to get to the postseason, get their experience, see how far they can go, and then really stock up for next year. Next year is the target year when you can really look to win the Super Bowl. But that doesn't mean the Lions still can't have a productive season. I think that when you look at this football team, you realize offensively, Jamison Williams steadily getting better, getting his routes in order, being a lot more crisp. You're going to see the continued involvement of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think that Jared Goff is going to play that porous. Now, here's the thing. You guys got to remember, we're sitting here talking about a team that is 8-3, and you're going to have an opportunity now for Dan Campbell. If you're going to stay panicked, that kind of indicates to me you don't trust Dan Campbell sitting in that film room watching and learning how to correct and make changes. I think the Lions will be able to play a little bit better and not have so many turnovers offensively. I think they'll start faster. Look, guys, that performance yesterday was listless, and it was the byproduct of them having played Sunday. Remember, the Thursday football that you guys watch is not anywhere near what we see on Sunday. And on Sundays, the Lions are a lot crisper. They make more plays, and they do end up with turnovers. You got to also remember, Brian Branch is going through a learning curve. Jack Campbell going through a steep learning curve. You got Kirby Joseph banged up a little bit. This extra rest will help this Detroit Lions team moving forward. And yeah, I know we all like style points. We'd like the Lions to win by 14 every week, but that's just not how the NFL works. The Lions are going to play gritty, tough football, and they've shown you earlier this year that they can stay in games, and when the time comes late, they can make the critical play on defense, just like they did against the Bears, where it might not be pretty. Aaron Glenn has told reporters a lot of times, look, we're not the 85 Bears. It's a bend, don't break style of defense, but what the Lions are hoping for is in those critical moments when it's time for the defense to make plays, they expect the likes of Aiden Hutchinson and Cam Sutton, Jerry Jacobs to make plays, Kirby Joseph. And I think if you give some trust for this Detroit Lions football team, they'll reward you this year.
Yeah, John, I mean, you need turnovers. I think you would agree there. This defense is one of those defenses. We could talk about the pass rush. We could talk about the secondary, because the pass rush to me is a problem, John. But you're right. It's a bend-don't-break defense, and how they've had success is just creating turnovers. And this defense is not doing that. They got to get back to that. Appreciate you for joining, John. I appreciate you. For people that don't know, if you're in the chat, you know John. He's always hanging around. Publisher for All Lions and host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. John, can't wait till next week. Hopefully, it'll be a better attitude. We'll have a better, there'll be a better morale in the room here. We could preview that Saints game. But appreciate you for taking the time, John. Happy Black Friday, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Things I'm thankful for, being part of the Woodward family. Thank you for having me on. Sam, Lucas, Ball Knower, JB, Jeff, I appreciate it. Anytime you want, baby. I love talking about the Lions. And even though it's gloomy on this Friday, drink up, baby. It cures it all, baby.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, John.
There you go, John
Appreciate it,
McAroo, the voice of reason. It's always a good time. The doc. All right, let's go to break. We come back. We'll talk about Jared Goff specifically, because you kind of heard John there give his take. We'll get our take when we come back. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Planet Fitness, because, guys, yeah, we're at Planet Fitness, man. These Lions players getting to Planet Fitness, that defensive line specifically, because we got to get some sacks here. Planet Fitness can maybe help you do that. You go to Planet Fitness, you experience a squeaky clean gym. They got tons of equipment, full body workout in just 30 minutes, and all memberships include, of course, fitness training. You'll get all this for just $10 a month. $10 a month. No commitment. No matter where you are, there is a Planet Fitness close by. There are more than 50 in Metro Detroit and thousands more throughout the world. We'll see you guys right after the break to talk about Jared Goff.
Join Woodward Sports' own Jeff Iafrate, along with special WSN guests, for the most anticipated Lions season in decades. Filled with different surprises and expert analysis. You're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Woodward Sports YouTube channel on Sundays and tune in live from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m.
Savor the heart of home at Big Boy with our all-new down-home comfort dishes. Feast on home-style goodness with our Southern Comfort Chicken Bowl, veal parmigiana, and apple pie hotcakes. The down-home delight doesn't stop there. Potato pancakes are back. Dive into the richness of our perfectly crafted potatoes with our classic potato pancakes and our stuffed potato pancakes. Top off your meal with our new gingerbread shake, a seamless blend of creamy vanilla and sweet gingerbread flavors. Nothing beats the comforting taste of down-home cooking. Enjoy every bite, only at Big Boy.
Come hang with the Woodward Sports Crew all throughout football season on Saturdays and Sundays to join our college football and Detroit Lions live watch parties.
Inside the 5, caught, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
With money on the line, featuring different special guests and surprises. Start times will vary depending on the game. Only on our Woodward Sports YouTube channel.
For over 60 years, Fairway Pack & Co. has provided Michigan's finest restaurants, hotels, and casinos with prime beef, Wagyu beef, and dry-aged beef. Experience the Fairway difference for yourself today. Visit the steak shop in Girls Point Woods for grab-and-go steaks, or you can simply order online at fairwaypacking.com. Man, oh man, it's the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. On Black Friday, recapping Lions-Packers yesterday. And we've kind of got to a lot of the meat and potatoes, no pun intended, but, we had Thanksgiving yesterday. But for real, we're getting to Jared Goff now, and I think it's time we do talk about Jared because he's had 6 turnovers in the last 2 games. If you just want to completely eliminate that from your mind, I don't know what to tell you. That's a problem. You can't turn the ball over. Especially in this league where, margin for error there for a lot of teams is very small. You don't have the 85 Bears to bail you out, that defense. You don't. So turnovers are killing this team. And I mentioned it. It is the second worst stretch of football Jared Goff has played in his career, turnover-wise. And I mentioned it to John. 2019, he had a 2-game stretch where he had 7 turnovers in 2 games. He had 6 in 2 games now with the Lions. So, again, he's grown as a quarterback. I'm not trying to say he's regressed or anything like that, but this can't happen. Like, the turnovers cannot happen. You can't do it. And Jared knows that as well as I do. That's the only thing stopping this offense, Sam, I believe. The only thing stopping this offense from having production is turnovers. Now, the offensive line not playing well obviously does not help, but turnovers are one of the biggest because of how the defense is playing. You cannot turn the ball over. And he hasn't really done that in Detroit. I want to make that very clear. I'm not trying to say he's a turnover machine. I want to watch here because he's only had 2 games in his Lions career with 2 interceptions, 2 or more. So, it's not something that, 2 games with 2 interceptions, and they've had 1 with 3. But it's not something that's been a consistent problem with Jared Goff. So I don't want to go that far because, again, for the most part, he has done a good job of taking care of it. So the evidence would show, at least during his Lions tenure, that he'll probably get over this, at least with the sample size we have. But at the same time, 6 turnovers in 5 days, you have no choice but to get better, Sam Flannel. So I got to make that clear, too. You're at the floor right now. So just don't turn the ball over and you're already getting better. You could turn the ball over once and you're getting better. You could turn the ball over twice and you're getting better. So I assume Jared Goff, moving forward, will not have this issue. But at the same time, 6 turnovers in 5 days, you have no choice, like I said, but to play better. To me, the big game for Jared Goff, and not just for Goff, but this Lions team, and I'm not going to say, this team, is a fraud because I never thought they'd win a Super Bowl anyway. So I'm kind of in a different, block with that. I think they'll win a playoff game. But that Dallas game is going to tell us a lot. And that schedule isn't as easy as it was before, considering how the Lions are playing. Not saying they're going to lose most. I'm not going to say they're going to lose most of them or anything like that. I think they're going to be favored. I think they'll win a majority of these games coming up. But that Dallas Cowboys game towards the end of the season before New Year's Day, besides playoff success, that to me is one of the bigger measuring sticks of the entire season. Oh, yeah. Not only for this Lions team, Sam, for the defense, but for Jared Goff. You're going on the road, you're going to Dallas, you're facing that defense, that Cowboys defense. And listen, you could go next week, you play good against the Saints, cool, you beat the Broncos, awesome, it's cool. But that Dallas game, that will be a measuring stick for Jared Goff. That will be a measuring stick for this Lions team. Because if you go into Dallas and beat them, well, you're thinking, okay, well, if you go to Dallas on the road and beat the Cowboys, maybe they can do something in the playoffs. That's a good team. But until that point, that's the game for me, Sam, for Jared Goff. Like that Dallas game, I'm circling on the calendar because the turnovers have to stop. That's a problem. There's a lot of things you can get to, but for Jared, I assume he will play better. That is what we have to assume because of how well he's played. But I'm telling you, man, I cannot wait for that Dallas game. I can't.
I can't either, but you can't I'm not going to assume that he's going to torch the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys have.
I don't want to assume that either.
I understand. Yeah. I understand that one. I understand that completely. But when you look at the Cowboys at Dallas, that seems like the type of game that Jared Goff might wet his pants again, because he is going to be facing a relentless pass rush, most likely led by Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, and he's going to be throwing a ball into a secondary with corners like Deron Bland, who's your Defensive Player of the Year, and Stephon Gilmore, who once was a Defensive Player of the Year as a corner and is playing not the best football of his life, but he's playing very well.
He locked down Terry McLaurin yesterday.
Yes, and he can still do that even when he's not quite in his prime anymore. And Jared Goff, here's the reality of the situation. He had a great year last year. He has had a lot of great moments this year. But these last 2 games, and furthermore these last 5 games, and I'm going to get to why in a second, there is no way in the hottest spot of hell that I am paying that man $50 million a year. No chance. Absolutely no chance. Maybe something a little cheaper than that, but definitely not $50 million a year. And here is why. Here is really why. This is kind of the ballad of Jared Goff for this season, especially when it comes to the last 5 games. Did you guys know that Jared Goff this season, coming into the Packers game, already had more interceptions this year than he did last year? I get 7 is absurd. Nobody expected him to duplicate that, but he already has 8, including 2 that were returned for touchdowns. Plus the 3 lost fumbles that he had against the Green Bay Packers at Ford Field, which leads me to this. We've talked about the last 5 games for the Lions. It's also been a last 5 games for Jared Goff, because in the last 5 games, and I hope Spencer and Easy, you guys are watching because you're going to love this.
Easy is.
Yes, Jared Goff has thrown for 7 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, plus the 3 lost fumbles in the Packers game, which means he has been basically a turnover machine, and he has a negative touchdown to turnover ratio. And let's go by these games one-on-one. We talk about the Baltimore Ravens game. He only led the offense to 6 points, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick. And again, we talked about it a couple days after that game. We kind of chalked that up to that was just a stinker. As long as he bounces back, everything is fine. But you look at the Raiders game. In the Raiders game, Jared Goff, there was a really bad pick 6 that basically let the Raiders back into the game. Well, the Lions ultimately ended up winning, but in that game, do we remember how great Jahmyr Gibbs played? He had his coming out party. He had one of the best games any running back has had all year. And the running game as a whole combined for 40 carries for 226 yards, 1 touchdown, 5.7 yards per carry. I would say on that offense in that game, Jared Goff benefited heavily from an offensive line, which we agree when healthy is the best in the league. Even if you're missing a guy, is one of the best in the league, and a running game, which is arguably the best in the league moving forward. And they played like that in that game, even without David Montgomery. And also the defense only gave up 7 offensive points to the Raiders, and Jimmy G missed Devontae Adams on 2 walk-in touchdowns if he completes them. That matters when it comes to that performance, when that whole team, the offense, Jared Goff, the defense. Even in the Los Angeles Chargers game, and Jared Goff was great in that game. I remember after the game, Neil Rule comes in and says Jared Goff was brilliant. He might as well have been changed his name to Jesus Christ Goff. But let me say this. The Chargers have the worst pass defense in the league. And you know who else torched them this year? Tua Tagovailoa. That's understandable. Ryan Tannehill torched them. Kirk Cousins torched them. Dak Prescott to some extent torched them. Patrick Mahomes torched them. And you know who else also torched them? None other than Jordan Love. And none of these guys, I mean none of them had the run game support quite like Jared Goff did in the game that Jared Goff torched them. Because in that game, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for 26 carries for 193 yards, 3 touchdowns for 7.4 yards per carry.
Also out, Flannel? Jonah Jackson.
Yes, absolutely.
He was also out for that game.
He was out for that game. So that offensive line pretty much manhandled the Chargers defensive line. Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker put Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa in phone booths, and they ran the ball very, very effectively. Not very, very effectively great. And one of those drives was basically a one-play, 75-yard touchdown run by David Montgomery, which obviously was the result of Jared Goff handing the ball off to him at the perfect moment, and they given him a slap in the ass and said, "Go, David, go." No, obviously that's not the case. He had nothing to do with that. When you look at the Chicago Bears game, Jared Goff, if it wasn't for those last 2 minutes, single-handedly cost that team that game. He threw 3 pick sixes, and if you want to talk about the defense for that game, fine, but the defense only gave up 3 points off of those 3 picks. Did I say 3 pick sixes? My bad. Just 3 picks. The defense gave up only 3 points off of those 3 picks, and the running game gave them the support of 20 carries for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns for 5.6 yards per carry. So like you see where I'm going with this. And oh, by the way, against the Packers, they lose. He fumbles three times. One of them is returned for a touchdown, and that's all despite the running game giving him 26 carries for 125 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4.8 yards per carry. So here's the reality of the situation. Jared Goff, for the last 5 months as a whole, has stunk. And the offensive line has played great, and the running game has played great. He has Ben Johnson as his play caller. Everything is so insulated with him, and he is still finding a way to fuck things up lately. And that's just reality. So there is no way in hell I am giving this man a long-term extension right now. I'll tell you what. Is there a chance that he turns it around and plays excellent football for the last stretch of the season? Sure. But he's got some stuff to prove, man.
No, really quickly, because I see Booner, and I want to get to this. Allow me to do this, fellas. I'll take the lead on this one. Booner says, waiting for this offensive line and Jonah Jackson to get mentioned in this segment. Say it, Flannel. Allow me to, Booner. I'll bring it up. Because you actually just made my point. Congratulations. If you want to go first to the offensive line for how Jared played, losing 3 fumbles, thank you for making my point. That's the question we're asking about Jared Goff. Is he a franchise quarterback? Let me inform you something, Booner, and this is for all people that just want to absolve Jared from any blame. Not everything's going to be perfect.
Never is.
Never is. Your job as a quarterback is to overcome that. Why is it a thing that CJ Stroud as a rookie overcomes multiple offensive tackles being in and out of the lineup, multiple offensive linemen being in and out of the lineup, and he's just fine? Like, we can't, guys, and this is where the Jared Goff stuff gets a little ridiculous. No one's saying that this guy's a bum, but for you to walk out of yesterday's game, and I was there in person, like, I had to watch it, for you to walk away from that game and say, man, that offensive line was just atrocious, which it was, but to only have that takeaway from the turnovers, guys, you gotta wake up. Jared Goff deserves as much blame as they do. Take care of the football. You saw the play where he scrambled, he ran like 3 or 4 yards and lost the fumble. Was that the offensive line's fault? Like, please, I'll allow you guys to speak on that. That's where I'm lost with this. Guys, if we're going to talk about Jared Goff and talk about extending him, what happens if you play like this against the 49ers? What happens if you play like this against the Eagles? Because I'll tell you one thing, those 2 defensive lines are going to cause problems.
More problems.
More problems. This offensive line, and by the way, there's a lot of pressure that's put on those guys because they are elite, but to assume that they're going to shut everybody out is wrong. That is not the case. That's not how the NFL works. You're going to have Nick Bosa get loose. It is what it is. Like, Taylor Decker is a human being. These guys are not perfect. Penei Sewell is a human being. They can't be elite every single game. But your job as a quarterback is to overcome that. That's why organizations pay their quarterbacks. Like Mahomes, even in a game against Tampa in the Super Bowl, those guys can find a way. Not saying Goff's Mahomes, but to some extent, if you're going to pay him and you think he's that guy, you have to find a way. You have to. And you can't lose 3 fumbles. Like, you can't. You can't. Like, so again, with the whole Jared Goff stuff, let's relax a little bit. Like, with the offensive line, blaming the offensive line. Like, you could go there, and they definitely had something to do with it, but to say it's all on the offensive line and Jared Goff, man, poor Jared. No, dude. Sam just went through the stats. He's been a turnover machine. That's a problem. And if you can't admit that, that's on you. That's you being blind to what Jared Goff's been doing in Detroit, which is a lot of good things. But let's not act like the last 2 games haven't been a problem. Like, that's where I'm a little over the hill with the stuff, Lucas. Is you could bring up Jared Goff and you could say, well, he's played well in the last 2 games, maybe it's an anomaly. But to sit here and after yesterday to look at the offensive line, they didn't play well. But damn, hold on to the football. He fumbled 3 times, dude.
It's ridiculous. And I saw him after. He's like, well, he got hit 2 times from behind. I was like, that's awareness. Jared Goff, this is where I truly got frustrated because he lost all excuses for me yesterday. He had terrible pocket awareness. He was taking sacks that he should have easily just moved around in the pocket a little bit, hanging on way too long to the ball. That had a huge reason to do with those fumbles because he was not, again, no pocket awareness. You hang on to the ball against a secondary that didn't have Rasul Douglas, Jair Alexander. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We brought it up before the show. Pretty much everybody on the Lions offense ate. Sam Laporta ate. Jamison Williams, he ate. Khalif Raymond ate. Amon-Ra St. Brown did his thing. Jared Goff, he was missing easy throws to Laporta over the middle that are just NFL, everyday NFL throws. He was missing wide open reads on 2nd and 3rd down, taking deep shots when there's a wide open receiver in the flat. And he's just mobility. That's what, it's 2023, okay? We're not in 2000. Those Trent Dilfers that people talk about where you don't have to be mobile and extend plays, even Eli Manning's for that matter, That day of the NFL is over. If you're going to be a game manager, part of managing the game in 2023 is to be able to extend plays. So this is why when people are like, oh, you hate Goff now, he's a bad quarterback. No. But I can't unsee what I've seen from the last 2 games to the Detroit Lions, who have been ass forever, have never won in a game, to now rely on putting a guy where everything has to be perfect. And even when it is perfect, he could still find a way to mess it up. Jared Goff's whole thing is he's a game manager. If he's not able to manage the game because he's not the most overly accurate, he's definitely not the most overly athletic, and he's not the best leader, he's not a terrible leader, but he's not a guy that you can rely on with 45 seconds left in the game against a good team just to drive you down the field. That is why we're kind of nauseated with it, because we've been sold this stock of the last couple of years, or last probably season and a half, that we bought into, that this guy is the answer. Just shut up. Trust Holmes, trust everybody else that Jared Goff is the guy. I think you're able to trust Brad Holmes, you're able to trust Dan Campbell, you're able to trust Ben Johnson, but there's parts of their plans that are kind of their weaknesses. Part of that plan that, yeah, it's going to work, but there's something that, if something's not going to work, it's the quarterback position. That's what I have to question right now, because this defense, you can trade, you can draft, they got a bunch of cap space. But at the end of the day, if this defense is good and you can't manage the game, that's an issue. That is a real issue, and it's part of a talent thing, and that's why, to Flannel's point, as of right now, I'm not investing $50 million. I said that before in the season. I would. I don't think I can. I just don't think I can after watching the last month.
And I agree with you. Now, the thing with Goff, and this is what the reality is, and we saw it against the Bucs, where it's like, hey, he lost his number 1 running back, and they still found a way to win. That showed me they won because of Jared. Impressive. But the last 2 games, they have not won because, well, the Bears game, we saw what happened. He kind of got them in that hole, and then, of course, he helped lead them out of it. Great. Kudos. This Packers game was not great again. Like, Jared Goff's not playing well. And I think he'll get back to where he was originally playing, which is, a pretty high level. He's playing pretty well. But to sit here and act like it's not a problem is you're blind. It's a problem. And Jared Goff knows it as well as we do. And he even said it, we can bring up the offensive line. Jared Goff even commented on it. He said, I was maybe holding the ball for too long. Yeah. Like, guys, let's not act like Jared Goff even knows. He's like, those guys, he didn't even want to blame the offensive line, which he's a quarterback. He's not going to do it anyway. But he's like, maybe I did hold the ball for a little too long. Yeah, you did. You did. Against a secondary that had a plethora of injuries.
He made a couple bad checks at the line of scrimmage, too. Like, that defense was just fucking with his head, too. That's the other thing. Like, he was checking out of plays and checking back into them. Like, in that first drive, he checked out of a pass, checked into a run, checked out of a pass, incomplete pass. It's like, just take the run. You have David Montgomery. Like, the Lions were still able to run the ball yesterday.
They were.
They still had the ability to run the ball.
But the problem is when you have a quarterback like Jared, who, again, is damn good in play action. When you have elite protection, it helps, of course. But when those things aren't going correctly, when you can't run the football because you're down and you get predictable and your offensive line's not playing well, and your job as the quarterback is to fix problems. That is his job. If you're going to pay him $50 million, his job is to fix problems. Jalen Hurts fixes problems. He has the highest passer rating when he's trailing. Like, fixing problems. If Jared Goff can't fix problems, which we've seen him do at times in Detroit, but the last 2 games, the Bears, the Lions were, again, a win's a win, I get all of that, but it is concerning. And if you play like this against the Packers and lose, you got better teams coming up. And you got the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the year, and you got a playoff team, who knows? And if they make it far in the playoffs, you got the 49ers and Eagles. If we're talking big picture, we'll see how they play, but God, dude, it's not good. And we'll see. I think if we're talking Jared Goff outlook for the rest of the season, I assume he'll get back to how he's been playing. It's going to be better
than this right now.
It has to.
I don't think you can just forget that this happened, though. You know what I mean? Like, he can get better, and like, we'll give him his flowers when he gets better, but like, this right now, you can't forget it when you're talking about putting the future of this franchise in this man's hands. That's where I'm at with it. Like, he can still, like, I'm going to remember this. It's not shaken from my memory.
And was he the only?
I saw what I saw.
Was he the only reason they lost? No. Because the defense was not playing well either. But let's not absolve Goff from any criticism. That's where you lose me with that. The people are like, well, and I know Neil Rule is going to come on here and talk about it at 11-1 and say, well, it's all the offensive line and Jared Goff's absolved. That is incorrect, and that is a bad take. Jared Goff deserves blame for this loss. He just does. Simple as that. Let's go to break when we come back. Let's talk about Dan Campbell a little bit because he spoke on his decision to go for it on again, that play. And you guys remember the 4th and 4 at Detroit's their own 23-yard line. We'll talk about that when we come back. His answer, our thoughts when it happened, all that and much more. But first, we got to hear about our friends from Swiss Insurance.
Absolutely. Do you have football on the brain? Of course you do. Fall ushers in college and professional football, and this year has been awesome, although yesterday was not. Fall is also a perfect time to shop your home and auto insurance. Shop it like a pro with Swiss Insurance. They cover Woodward Sports Network, and they should be covering you too. Ask for Market Swiss Insurance today at swissins.com or call 248-800-4177. Again, that is 248-800-4177, Swiss Insurance.
At work and at home, we're there with smarter security solutions. Featuring complete automation with customized alerts and more. For over 90 years, we've been the company that's been counted on to protect what matters most, all with personalized service and care. Right now, for a limited time, receive a free video device plus free installation with a new home system. Guardian Alarm. We protect Michigan.
Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel. Join Woodward Sports' own Jeff Iafrate, along with special WSN guests for the most anticipated Lions season in decades. Filled with different surprises and expert analysis. You're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Woodward Sports YouTube channel on Sundays and tune in live from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m.
Glorious!
Yes, Glorious Cannabis is dropping their new ice water bubble hash infused pre-roll called Honolulu Blue. And if you watched the game yesterday, I'm pretty sure you needed at least 2 of these to make it through afterwards. Anyway, it's a gassy, aggressive strain named in honor of our Detroit football team. If you haven't had one of these ice water pre-rolls, then what are you waiting for? You are missing out. You can find them at a Dispo dispensary near you for 25% off. Use code word Woodward Glorious and check them out online today at gloriouscanna.com.
Glorious!
I knew this would come eventually. Whenever we have shows like this and we have to talk about things that maybe people are uncomfortable talking about, or maybe some of the bad takeaways we had from the Lions game, there's already people that get offended. That's why I love doing this. Will S. says, goodbye, this is terrible to listen to, a bunch of Fairweather fans.
Oh my God.
And Will S. would assume we would just come on air today and just kiss more ass, but unfortunately we're not doing that. After you lose a game like that, there's no ass to be kissed. Pause on that, but it's true. There's a lot of things you just have to talk about. It would be dumb of me to get on this show on air and say, yeah, guys, you know what? They're going to win the division. Yeah, they're going to win the division. Like, that's not, again, that was a goal, and they're going to accomplish that goal. But the context of the last 2 games, and even the last month of football, is not great. And Dan Campbell, by the way, he has done a great job for the majority of this season, at least coaching, because people remember when he first got to Detroit, the team was so bad that, the man was going for it on 4th down pretty often. And at the time, I kind of was like, you know what? It was frustrating, but at the same time, the team stinks. So I get it. You're trying to scratch and claw for every single win. I wasn't that upset about it. So what happened yesterday, though? And I want to give some context on why I have a problem with it, the decision to go for it. And Dan actually admitted that it was not the right decision. So I don't want to pile on too much, but this can't happen moving forward. And Dan knows that. And this isn't one of those things I also want to say where you can say, well, Jeff, if they got it, you would have been like, well, great job, Dan Campbell. No, I wouldn't have. Even if they converted that, I still would have said on this show that decision was dumb. And it was very risky because you need context on how the game was going before that. And I'll get into that context. And some would even say, by the way, fans would be like, well, Jeff, the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Well, let me give you some context on that. Did you know what the last 5 drives for the Packers looked like before that decision to go for it on the Lions' own 23-yard line? Turnover on downs, field goal, punt, missed field goal, punt. That was the last 5 drives for the Packers. 3 points in 5 drives. 3 points in 5 drives. And the Detroit Lions, at that point in time, if you talk about where the game was, it was 23 to, at the time, let me just check so I don't get this incorrect here, 23 to 14. 23 to 14, okay? It's still in reach. And you gave Jordan Love and that Packers offense a short field. And you can even be like, well, Jeff, they were... No, the last 5 drives, I just told you, 5 drives, 3 points. And you gave that offense a short field. That, to me, ended the game. Like that, once you now went from a 9-point game to a 15-point game. So things change a little bit there. And again, you just put your defense in such a compromising position. For as well as they kind of started to play, they weren't playing well at the beginning of the game, but they started playing better. And then you do that. That's called putting your defense in compromising positions. What I talked about earlier, this offense, but more so Dan Campbell with that decision. Especially when your offense is not playing well, make Jordan Love go down the field and score. Like they scored on that drive, and guess what? Interesting enough, it was the only score they had the rest of the game. That was in the third quarter, fourth quarter. That was the only score they had the rest of the game. That decision by Dan was dumb. You got to play field position in that time of the game, and trust me, Dan knows it. I don't want to pile on, but that can't happen moving forward. Like I get going for it. 0 for 5 yesterday on 4th down. A lot of those though, they kind of needed to, but that one specifically was bad, Sam.
Well,
it was bad.
Here's the thing. Dan Campbell, I would say, for the most part, has done a great job as a coach this year. I would say up until this past game, I would have him as the front runner for Coach of the Year. Although his grasp on that is loosening. I will just say that. But here's the reality. That decision to go for a fake punt on 4th and 4 or 5 from their own 20-yard line down by 9 in the third quarter. That was idiotic. That was idiotic in every single way, shape, or form, because here's what was happening during that game. As much as the Packers had dominated the first half, the Lions defense had really kind of, as much as the first 2 drives were bad, which they were, they had kind of, to some extent, kept the Packers from delivering the absolute kill shot. And they were put in a bad situation because that 3rd touchdown was a fumble return off of another one of those Jared Goff fumbles, by the way. Just for the record, that was returned for a touchdown by Jonathan Owens. And it was 23-6 at the half. And because the Lions had deferred, they got the ball back. And what did they do? They did exactly what the Lions what they were supposed to do. They went down and scored a touchdown very, very quickly. I believe less than 4 minutes were taken off the clock. They got the 2-point conversion. It was 23-14. And at that point, you know what I was thinking to myself? I was thinking, I was right. The Lions are inevitable, because that's what I said the last Monday after they beat the Chicago Bears. I was like, the Packers didn't kill them. They didn't deliver the kill shot. They let the Lions hang around to some extent, and now the Lions are going to come back and win. And what did they do next? The Lions stopped them. The Lions stopped the Packers. They got the ball back, and they got a first down. Then then the drive stalled, and it was 23-14 with, I think, 5.5 minutes left in the third quarter. I truly believe, and maybe I'm wrong, that is the type of play, the fact that they did not get that 4th and 4 fake punt, that demoralized the team. I believe that if they punt the football away, they might have still won that game. At that point in the game, the Lions defense was playing fine for the most part, because the only other points the Lions defense gave up the rest of the game was on a very, very short field that the Packers got because the Lions missed on a fake punt. So that is the type of coaching decision that I think was... It wasn't smart. I'm not going to say a meaner word, because Dan Campbell, for the most part, has, I would say, exercised a lot of the demons that he had early on in his career in Detroit, but that was not a smart decision. And that was the type of decision that, to me, made sure that you still lost that game when you still had given yourself a chance to crawl right back in. That was the play. That was the moment that flipped the game for good this time.
It was. I mean, like I said, 5 previous drives before that that fake punt attempt, 3 points. 3 points. And that was dating back to the first 2 quarters. Now, they scored in the third quarter. They didn't score again the rest of the game. That was the only touchdown they scored, was on that fake punt. Like, again, it was 23-14. Now it flipped to 29-14. And it's a very different game at that point. So you can't do it. You just can't do it. We could talk about this defense and different things maybe we don't like about the defense or maybe how they're playing. But when you put the defense on the 23-yard line, you're not set up for success there.
Yeah.
You're just not. But regardless, Lucas, what'd you think of the decision itself? Because Dan, again, he admitted he was wrong. I'm not trying to pile on, but your reaction when it first happened.
I wasn't even that mad because at the end of the day, those decisions have kept us in games for the Detroit Lions. It was the cherry on top to what the fuck are we doing? Like, that's just who Dan Campbell is. But it goes back to what the fuck are we doing on offense and what the fuck are we doing on defense? Why are we staying in zone coverage this long? They tried going to man, so not even like man was working. But just the whole defensive scheme was making me want to lose my mind. The efficiency on offense was making me want to lose my mind. So I think that fake punt, just because the situation it was in, it was just the cherry on top. Yes, it was a stupid play call, but I'm not just going to act like that one decision turned over the game. Did it have a role in it? Obviously. But the team before that put themselves in so many situations where they had to either go for it on fourth down inside their own territory. I really wish they would have just rolled the offense out there if they were going to go for it, but they didn't. I'm not. That's just who Dan Campbell is. It just felt a lot like we were backtracking to last year. I don't think this is going to happen every week going on, but that game felt a lot like last year. It felt like the team that we were watching through the first 8 weeks of last season.
And again, like there has to be a point where your defense, they were struggling in the first half, but again, they played better in the second half. Kat says Campbell lost confidence in that defense. The fake punt was the product of the problem. Detroit had no pass rush all game. You're right. They did not have a pass rush all game, but Dan Campbell even admitted he let the defense down. So, you're actually wrong. Dan Campbell already admitted it was a bad decision. So he's actually in agreement with us. It was not a smart decision. And I'm assuming it won't happen moving forward. But those things, again, Lucas, to your point, I am with you. I usually do rock with Dan Campbell on fourth down decisions for the most part, but that one was a bonehead decision.
And I'm not saying it wasn't stupid, but
that
it's
one
just
was dumb.
It's Dan Campbell. Like, these things are going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the guy that MCDC is. And so I'm not gonna be like, oh, what the fuck? Like, that has happened numerous times to the Detroit Lions. Like, so I'm not gonna be like, what the hell's going on?
Yes.
But at the same time, the team has put themselves in that situation where if he does do that, okay, now Dan's got to catch all the blame. That play call, if it would have worked, we wouldn't be sitting up here, and the Lions might have even scored on that drive, but you don't know. The fact is, the team put themselves in that situation before the play call was even made.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, again, the defense, like John talked about, the bend don't break.
Now, I will say,
this one, hold on. Ball out. You would have been saying how big his balls are if it worked out. Actually, no, I would not. I just made that point earlier in the segment. I don't care if it worked or not. I would have still came on the show and said that was not a smart decision because of where you were, how the game was going, how the last 5 drives for the Packers, how they played out. 3 points, guys. 3 points. The last 5 drives. That was the only score the Packers had in the second half. You could bring up, how well the Packers moved the ball, all that. I'm talking points. That was the only points they scored in the second half. Like, sorry.
The ones that did piss me off were all those fourth downs in the red zone where they were like 0 for 4 with points left on the board. Like, if they would have just took the points when they were down inside their own 40 multiple times, it's a touchdown game, and the whole dynamic of the game in those last 2-3 minutes is completely changed. That's where I was losing my mind. It's like, I thought we got over. Like, I know Riley Patterson isn't the best kicker and he missed an extra point. But there was multiple 35, 40-yard field goals that you come out with points instead of empty-handed. And you don't know. That changes the momentum with the team. The defense could be feeling a lot better because it's like, all right, we got to stop. They got 3. Let's get another stop. Let's get 3. The whole dynamic could be changed. It's just the fourth down execution as a whole was terrible, and you kept going to it. So that's why I got frustrated.
Especially when you're not converting fourth downs for the game.
Yeah, and just the play calling on fourth
it's
down.
how the game was going. Like, if the offense was playing well, in the Packers defense, the Packers looked like they were just locked in at all times. I don't know. They brought their best foot. They brought their best game to the Lions. That's what's going to happen moving forward. The Lions just got to be ready for these teams, man. You can't slip up. You can't shoot yourself in the foot, or that's going to happen. And assuming, again, guys, I'm not saying they're going to lose every game the rest of the season. None of us are saying that. But some things that happened yesterday, some things that transpired, cannot happen moving forward, like especially with how the defense is playing right now, and especially with Jared Goff the last 2 games. Like, they got to get it together. But regardless, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this weekend, some of the NFL games. We'll give our picks, and we'll get to Michigan and Ohio State at 9:30. Let's give our picks for that as well. I'm curious what Sam his confidence level on Saturday is. We'll get all that and more, but first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Big Boy. All right. Wintertime in Detroit is always better with comfort foods from Big Boy. Try their breakfast items like the potato pancakes. They're back. The classic lumberjack Santa Fe garden, and also the apple pie hotcakes that are too good to miss. Top it all off with the new gingerbread shake for dessert. Stop by your local Big Boy today.
At work and at home, we're there with smarter security solutions. Featuring complete automation with customized alerts and more. For over 90 years, we've been the company that's been counted on to protect what matters most, all with personalized service and care. Right now, for a limited time, receive a free video device plus free installation with a new home system. Guardian Alarm. We protect Michigan.
Gabby is a college student struggling to study for her big exam. Then she discovered Syntron, a healthy way for her to stay awake and focus. Jennifer frequently has chaotic days like this until she gets online, orders some Syntron, and finds her groove. April visited her local grocery store, purchased a case of Syntron, and entered to win the Syntron 100K Vegas giveaway. Pick up your case of Syntron today at any Meijer location or visit drinksyntron.com/Vegas and enter for the 100K Vegas giveaway.
Now, coming to Woodward Sports, Woodward and Main Street, the Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle D. Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.
Outdoor equipment, of course. We got to talk about it. Let's talk about Outdoor Equipment Company, official equipment provider of Woodward Sports. Michigan-grown, family-owned. Bad boy mowers, tractors, steel handhelds, and even weed whippers. Liberty trailers, Generac generators, Snow X plows, and salters. Outdoor Equipment Co. has it all. Buy it, rent it at 0% financing. Delivery to your doorstep. Just visit their website at outdoorequipco.com.
Let's just skip the NFL schedule. Screw it. A lot of emotions flowing through today. And Sam, I know you got more to kind of get out. You got something on golf you want to speak about. But again, Bruce says the Saints game is going to be a must-win game. I hate throwing out the word must-win, but ideally, you can't play like you had played the last two games. It's just that simple. The Lions are going to win more games. I still think they could finish with 12, maybe even 13 wins. But you can't play like this. That's all we're saying. The last two games have been bad, despite them being 1-1. It's the context matters. It does.
I'll tell you what, though. If the Lions, F around and lose to the Saints, which they could, it's the NFL, it's on the road. The Saints have a lot of talented players, and they are the division leader, although it's a weak division. Then the Lions are firmly in a dogfight for the number 4 seed at this point, or for the number 3 seed in danger of falling to the 4 seed. So I'm not going to say that it's a must win, but we're talking about the last 5 games. They haven't really looked as impressive or played a complete football game, including your quarterback, by the way, who as a whole on that stretch hasn't been very good. And then you're talking about losing another one. That would be a 6-game stretch in which you've played less than optimal football. That is not good as well. Well, one thing I wanted to get to on Jared Goff that I didn't really get to, because there is a lot to bring up today, and this might get some people mad, but I think we have to humble ourselves a little bit too. When we look at the contenders in the NFC right now, you look at the Eagles, you look at the 49ers, you look at the Cowboys, you look at the Lions. I think the Seahawks are kind of falling off as contenders. It's those 4. Jared Goff is nowhere near in the same league as Jalen Hurts at this point. I get it that a lot of people didn't ever say that he was, but there was a stretch in the year where Jalen Hurts was kind of struggling and Jared Goff was playing great. And even I put Jared Goff above Jalen Hurts on my quarterback rankings. I cannot do that anymore. And here's another thing, and this is going to be hard to hear, but I think we have to have this realization before, just while it's still a little bit raw after the game. Jared Goff right now, you can't even say with confidence that he's as good as Brock Purdy. You could even say that Brock Purdy is better than Jared Goff at this point, because Brock Purdy has more touchdown passes, a higher QBR, a higher quarterback rating, while having a worse offensive line, by the way.
And ability to extend plays with his legs.
And an ability to extend plays with his legs. And obviously probably the best play caller in the NFL, but he's got Kyle Shanahan, Jared Goff has Ben Johnson. It's not that big of a gap, although Kyle Shanahan is better. better. When you look at his running game, he has Christian McCaffrey, Jared Goff has Monty and Gibbs. Christian McCaffrey is the best individual running back of all of them, but it's not that far of a gap when you talk about CMC versus Monty and Gibbs. And then you even look at the weapons. Obviously, the 49ers weapons are better, but the Lions, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who to me is the best wide receiver out of any players on those teams. And the Lions still have Sam Laporta, whose numbers are actually fairly comparable with George Kittle this year, and a Josh Reynolds who's been good, although has fallen off a little bit, and a Jamison Williams who is steadily improving and being more of a part in this offense. You can't say at this point, and here's another thing that you also can't say. You can't blow your wad over Jared Goff at this point, do kind of the whole like Jared Goff, and then scoff at Dak Prescott and just call him Rain Dakota and that he's a bum. Because right now, Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
He's been playing better.
Right now, Dak Prescott is a legitimate MVP candidate, and Jared Goff was always a fake-ass MVP candidate. And I know that sounds a little bit mean, but that conversation is over at this point because Dak Prescott, he has more touchdown passes, a higher QBR, and a higher rating than Jared Goff. He has a worse running game, a worse offensive line, worse play calling, and I would say his weapons are, I don't know, I think it's a little bit of a wash. You look at Amon-Ra and CeeDee Lamb, I would consider that a bit of a wash. I mean, I think CeeDee's actually maybe a little bit better at this point, but still, it's how do you want it, basically. And then you look at his supplementary weapons. I mean, to me, it's kind of Cowboys and Lions are sort of on the same. So Dak Prescott has actually, at least offensively, been playing in a has been playing in a worse situation and has been playing better. Jared Goff, and I get it, this last game against the Packers, his offensive line let him down a bit. That's fair in this one game. But still, he had the support of a great running game. And in the previous 4 games, including the game against the Bears, in which he also shit his pants, but basically, like, at the end, he bailed him out, but still, for the most part, he didn't play well. He had an offensive line that was protecting him well. He had a running game. So to me right now, Jared Goff, we have to have a little bit of a realization. He's not as good as he's not playing as well right now. And to me, he's not even as good as the quarterbacks of the other 3 contending teams. And I never thought I'd say that at this point in the season.
Yeah, and the thing about Dak, too, and he has been statistically better, but the thing that the Lions don't have and why more responsibilities on Goff is because even if Dak turns the ball over, that defense going to get the ball back.
That's also fair. They a lot of them, they all have better defenses.
They do, but that's not. But to your point,
Yes.
Sam, Dak individually is playing better. But the thing is, and this is why maybe I'm harder on Goff, and I've been harder on Goff lately, is because he can't. You can't afford to do it. And some teams can, and some can get away with it. But for Jared, if you turn the ball over, this defense is what it is. Mm-hmm. No one's coming to help. Bruce Irvin cannot save this defense. James Houston can help, but he's not going to turn this defense into a top 5 defense. He just isn't. You'll create more of a consistent pass rush, but for Jared, if he does turn the ball over, Lucas, yeah, it's rough. Like, this defense, most likely over the last couple of games, what we've seen, they won't get the ball back. They have not been playing well either, and that doesn't obviously help the quarterback, but Jared, point blank, can't turn the ball over.
No,
you just can't.
He can't. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, this is why I was absolutely panicked about yesterday, just because even if he's not turning the ball over, you still have to be worried about him just going up against a physical defensive line, just a physical team in general. Jared Goff, on average, has showed you he struggles a little bit. And when you have this defense that's struggling, you have a San Francisco, those elite teams, I'm not going to go through them all again. You have those elite teams coming to town. You almost need Jared Goff to step up with this defense. And that's why it's even more worrying, because now you're having that question of, is that even still enough if Jared Goff steps up? Because if you want him to, he's going to have to take more shots. More shots equals more turnovers. And we have another elite offense on the other side that can put you in a hole real quick. We've seen Lions do that against bad teams and even mid teams where they're behind the 8 ball and it's really hard for them to catch up. And if it's a physical team, the Lions show that they struggle against physical teams. Chicago, as mid-talent as they are, they're a physical team. Baltimore, very physical team with a lot of talent. And the Packers yesterday, with like 10 inactives, they were the more physical team, and that's where it worries me.
It does, and that's what the Lions they're very prideful of, is what they do in the trenches. And very simple, they got beat at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball yesterday. Like, it outplayed entirely. All right, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll preview Michigan versus Ohio State. We'll get Sam and my predictions. Lucas, the Ohio State fan, At the time,
season.
At the time,
It's on watch.
It's on watch. Ryan Day's future with the team may dictate that. But when we come back, we'll talk a little more about that. But first, we got to hear about our friends from Guardian Alarm. That's an elite defense.
That is an elite defense. And you can let Guardian Alarm offer you customized solutions from real experts. Our professional technicians take the time to recommend security and automation solutions specific to your needs. 24/7 professional monitoring. Call us anytime, day or night, and know that a Guardian team member will stay on the phone as long as needed. Technology backed by people. Your safety and security deserves technology that's been proven to work, and people have been proven to care. Call 1-800-STAY-OUT. That's 1-800-STAY-OUT. Guardian Alarm, your local security experts.
Stop searching for a vehicle and start finding one. Les Stanford Chevrolet Cadillac makes it easy. We harness the power of multiple dealerships and own the biggest selection of GM brands in the area to get you the car you need. With the Les Stanford Group, you'll have access to 4 different dealerships, providing you with more makes, more models, and more choices. We're connected to more than 1,000 vehicles, and with so many high-quality CPO vehicles available, you'll find new car quality at pre-owned prices. You can start and end your search at lesstanford.com today.
Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune in to the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel.
The most convenient place to get that big fitness energy? It's Planet Fitness. Join today for just $1 down, $10 a month. With over 2,400 locations and equipment for every workout, you can get in, get energized, and get going. And with free fitness training and most clubs open 24 hours, everyone belongs in the judgment-free zone. So join today for $1 down, $10 a month, no commitment, cancel anytime.
Experience Dispo Romeo, a team that curates an exclusive atmosphere mixed with fresh inventory from Michigan's largest variety of products. The first ever cannabis mall of its kind is conveniently located off of Van Dyke and 32 Mile Road in Romeo. Dispo Romeo is now open late night until midnight every day except Sunday. Can it get any better than that? Dispo Dispensary, disposhops.com, your local cannabis plug.
Welcome back to the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. And for the chat, as far as the chat goes, Alicia says, "Damn, they're just ignoring half the chat." And we've had a lot to say today. At 9:50, we can do a mailbag/venting session. You can give us questions, or you can just write statements, and we'll read as many as we can. Because I do want, for our mailbag, typically at 9:50, I want it to be the chat's time to kind of get all their frustrations out, and we'll kind of react to everything they say. I think that'll be a little fun. But first, let's get to this. Saturday, you know what time it is. Ohio State coming over to Ann Arbor, the Big House, playing Michigan. The Michigan Wolverines. And they've allowed Jim Harbaugh to coach during the week, which I think, you know what? And Braylon said it, yesterday or the day prior. They messed up by doing that. And I want your confidence level going into this game, Sam Flannel. Where are you at coming off what they did last week?
All right, so my confidence level right now is at about a 7 out of 10. It would be higher if Jim Harbaugh was on the sidelines, but alas, that is not going to happen. It would also be higher if the running game had really gotten it going to the way that it was last year at any point this season, but it really hasn't, because Blake Corum has had a good year. He scored a lot of touchdowns, but he hasn't had quite every Big Ten game he played when he was healthy, he had 100 yards last year. This hasn't quite happened this year, and Donovan Edwards, for some reason, has just never gotten it going. His season high in rushing yards this year is 52, which if you would have told me that before the year, I would have lost my damn mind. But still, regardless of all that, they're undefeated. They still have an offensive line, which is good, but Carson Barnhart, their tackle, has really struggled against the pass rush, and I think that could be a problem for Michigan. The thing that they've always been over the last couple of years is they've been tougher up front, both on the offensive line and defensive line. And I do think this Michigan defensive line can give the Ohio State offensive line a ton of problems. Pressure Kyle McCord, who is not mobile, get some sacks on him and force him into some errant throws, maybe a couple of which are picked off by the likes of Will Johnson and Mike Sanders-Still, who have been balling this year. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take, I think, the defensive line manhandling the OSU offensive line, the Michigan defense not allowing Travion Henderson to get going, who has been balling lately as well, and not letting and not letting Kyle McCord have time to throw it and make some plays, because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get his to some extent. Although if you put Will Johnson on him, I think Will Johnson can limit him to some extent. I would say if there's things that I'm worried about with Ohio State, it's that I do think they're a little tougher up front than Ohio State teams of the last couple of years. Their defense as a whole, they've got some good linebackers, some good secondary pieces. I don't think they're to be taken lightly. And also, Lucas, as much as you hate Ryan Day is a head coaching advantage over Sharon Moore, who also has to be the offensive coordinator and O-line coach. Yeah, exactly. Which would make it that much sweeter if Michigan could beat them. I don't think it's going to be easy. I'm a little bit worried about their offense, the way it's looked in games in which Sharon Moore has been the head coach. They haven't looked quite the same. I'm a little bit concerned about J.J. McCarthy, who has not looked quite the same in the past 3 games, which is fair, by the way, as much as I hate to say it. I don't know. My final score prediction, I know I'm kind of all over the place, is Michigan 27, Ohio State 20. I cannot pick against Michigan to lose this game, because I think the difference in the game is going to be the defensive line. And you know who I think is going to be one of the players of the game, the defensive MVP? Kenneth Grant. Future top 15 pick. I like that. Kenneth Grant's a bowling ball.
Top 10 pick, yeah.
He's so good.
And your point about JJ, and this is probably my concern too, is the last 2 games, or we'll just start with the Penn State game. And you can say, well, Jeff, they didn't need to pass the ball. They dominated the trenches, running the football. Okay, cool. I get all of that. But the reason why I brought this up to you about JJ is he was 7 for 8, 60 yards. Didn't really get in rhythm because he didn't have to. They just ran the football. But that's when you go to Maryland out of rhythm and he doesn't play well. 12 of 23 with a pick. So the JJ is kind of, and we'll see against Ohio State, but now you're asking this man who before those 2 games had over 300 yards against Purdue, had almost 300 yards against MSU. I get they're different opponents, but still he was in rhythm. They're passing the football. Now with Sharon Moore, you know what he wants to do. They want to run the football. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how that, for JJ, kind of travels to take on Ohio State. Like, what does he look like? Is he in rhythm? And that's what my biggest concern is. I still think Michigan wins this because it is at the Big House.
Yes.
It's at home. If it was in Ohio, I might have a different score prediction, but I'm going to stick with Michigan. I'm going to say 27-23. But this game, man, and JJ lit him up last year.
He did.
But it's hard when the guy's not in rhythm the last 2 games, and now you're asking him to light up the Ohio State Buckeyes right now at home. We'll see, man. But I think Marvin Harrison, and we kind of talked about this, a good game for Michigan with Marvin Harrison is just keep that man under 100 yards. Like, if that man goes out and gets 130, 140, 2 TDs, 1 TD, this game could get out of hand.
Well, and here's the reality. Michigan has the personnel in the secondary to limit Marvin Harrison Jr. because Marvin Harrison Jr.
You don't limit that man.
I said limit, not stop.
You don't limit that man.
Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in the country, but Will Johnson is the best cornerback in the country, and he will rival Marvin Harrison Jr. when it comes to draft position. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be top 5, hell, maybe even top 3. But Will Johnson will be top 10 when he comes out as well. I think too, when it comes to the Penn State game, you're right. J.J. McCarthy, Michigan just committed to running the football in the second half and waiting for James Franklin to make a mistake, and he did, and Michigan won. I wasn't too concerned about that. But against Maryland, I would say that Michigan won in spite of J.J. McCarthy because he threw a terrible interception in the end zone when Michigan could have delivered the kill shot before halftime.
Right.
He badly overthrew Cornelius Johnson when he was wide open for the game-sealing touchdown. I don't know. It just seems like J.J. McCarthy has a really good relationship with Jim Harbaugh, and he doesn't quite perform the same when he's not on the sidelines. The numbers will definitely bear that out, but if you want some optimism, Michigan had their clunker of a win the week before Ohio State last year when they barely beat Illinois by 2, 19-17, and then they went into Ohio State and curb stomped them, and J.J. McCarthy played the best game of his life. So I don't know what that says or if it means anything, but it's really, really hard to get up for Penn State, know that Ohio State is in 2 weeks, and give it your all for Maryland. That's what I'm banking on, but we'll see. It's going to be a tough one.
It's a good test, and some of the comments I'm going to get to here. Let's see. Gentle Comedian says, Will Johnson got torched last week.
He didn't play his best game either.
Jeremiah says, Michigan secondary has had problems all as well. Just stop. Old Jarhead says, coaching problems have hurt Michigan, and especially McCarthy.
What What do you mean Michigan's secondaries had problems? Are you watching the same games that I'm watching? Like, I get it, they've played an easy schedule, but how did Drew Aller look against that secondary? And I get it, the pass rush has had a lot to do with it, but no quarterback has lit them up. Teams couldn't even get to 10 points against Michigan for the most part. Stop it. They have, you talk about Mike Sanderstill, Will Johnson, and Rod Moore. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Corner safety, that's as good as it gets. That's better than anything even Georgia and Alabama can throw at you. That's facts.
Chuck Brewer says, Jeff, just keep him out of the end zone, him referring to Marvin Harrison Jr. It's going to be tough, but it is what it is.
He's him all right.
And Kyle McCord, by the way, as much as I crapped on this man before the season, and I get in Ohio State, when you play in that system with Marvin Harrison and you have those weapons, you're going to have good numbers.
He's playing all right.
He's playing all right the last two games, man.
He's definitely solid.
Talk about in rhythm. Mm-hmm. He's in rhythm, man. But how are you feeling, Lucas? What's your take on it?
At the beginning of the season, I was not confident whatsoever that Ohio State getting the W. But to Flannel's point earlier, and it's honestly what made me swing it Ohio State's way, is Sharon Moore. The fact that I think Michigan is going to be down at some point in this game. I think it's inevitable. It's going to be a close game. Ohio State's by far the best offense they've seen. Marvin Harrison's going to be rolling. I think Travion Henderson's going to have a game. I think Michigan is going to struggle to be able to find a way to come back once they get in a hole, because as much as people want to clown Ohio State's defense, that secondary is pretty nice. Denzel Burke on the outside, I definitely think he can give Roman Wilson some trouble, especially Roman really hasn't been doing his thing as of lately. So when you take those two things into account, I think Ohio State has the head coaching advantage, like you said. They definitely have the motivation. They feel like this is a must-win after dropping 2 in a row to Michigan. Even if Ohio State wins, I'm not going to be a Ryan Day guy, but I do think Ohio State wins this game close just because they're in complete rhythm and they just know what they are right now. And I think Sharon Moore offensively is still trying to figure out that identity with Michigan. So I just think Ohio State, as of right now, is the team that's rolling more completely.
The thing that's going for Michigan is this is the toughest, this is the best defense that Ohio State has faced. So so we'll see how.
You could say likewise on the other side, though.
Penn State. I think Penn State's,
that's true.
But regardless, it's a good test for both teams. But I'm curious, man. Michigan's defense, they're going to have to come play, and JJ2 take care of the football. All right, let's go to break here. We'll get to what's trending with Lucas, and then at 9:50, please, venting session / mailbag. We'll try to get to as many comments. We'll go a little over today because who cares? We're making the decisions here, so we'll do it. All right. But before that, though, we get to hear about our friends from Mark White. Mark
White, of course. I got to get to Mark White. Let me just, when buying or selling real estate, flexibility and control over the sales process is key. Sellers, how would you like the freedom of canceling your listing agreement at any time for any reason with no penalty? That is exactly what Mark White & Associates offers. It's called the Minute by Minute Listing Agreement by Mark White & Associates. Try Mark White's risk-free minute-to-minute listing agreement today. Looking to buy or sell real estate? Visit markwhitesells.com or call 248-290-8242. markwhitesells.com, where flexibility meets success.
Since the dawn of moving people, Chevrolet has led the way. The world of transportation is changing. At Feldman Chevrolet, we are leading the charge forward. With every electric vehicle, every mile traveled, one Feldman at a time. The company that puts more Chevys on Michigan roads is now the #1 name for Chevy electric vehicles.
Woodward Sports' own Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day will be hosting our Lions postgame show after every Lions game all season long. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel for his hot-off-the-press takes, game analysis, and Kool-Aid sipping celebrations. You won't want to miss it. Join Maz, Stick, and special guests each week immediately following every Lions game, exclusively on the WSN YouTube channel.
Calling all landscapers. This is Darren McCarty. I'm at Outdoor Equipment Co. How would you like to landscape like a legend? How about a bad boy zero turn? And even a chainsaw. And even a weed whipper. Whether you landscape for your job or landscape for fun, get all your equipment from Outdoor Equip Co., the official equipment provider of Woodward Sports. Michigan grown, family owned. OutdoorEquipCo.com.
Come to Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men, where I get my A+ haircuts from the A+ stylist. In fact, I'm looking at it right now to quote my awkward line from before. For an award-winning haircut experience, register to win a trip of your dreams and all expenses paid suite for the 2024 NCAA tourney. That's right, no expense spared for you and 5 of your best buds. Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men open 7 days a week. Walk in anytime. It's wicked awesome.
You know what time it is. What's trending with Lucas? Lucas, I know we got some, if you want, though, Broder sent some footage, too, from the Lions.
Oh, yeah.
It's up to you. What do you got for us, cooking up?
We'll do this, and then we'll do the Broder footage for sure, because that obviously more Lions, the better.
Let's do it.
Before we jump in the line, we kind of talked about it earlier. Deron Bland set the record for most pick sixes in one season, and he basically had a whole player's career in the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever you want to call it. This man has been balling, but this is what they had for him after the post game.
A few words, you know. So I'm just gonna appreciate y'all. I'm thankful y'all. You know, it was a great win. A few words. Cowboys on me. Cowboys on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cowboys.
Now I obviously have been very vocal about how much I cannot stand the Dallas Cowboys, but Deron Bland is a man that I like and I respect. My question to you guys, as of right now, is he the defensive player of the year?
I mean,
Myles Garrett,
yeah,
TJ Watt.
I think he's in that range. You have what do you have? 6, 7,
6
consecutive pick sixes. And people, by the way, the career of Deron Bland. You look at his first 2 seasons in the NFL. He's been under the radar a little bit for what he's been doing, turning over the football. We talk about Trayvon Diggs, and they lost Trayvon.
He's better.
Deron Bland had 5 picks his rookie year. He's had 7 now his sophomore year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I want to kind of piggyback that off of something that Brandon Katz said. Same with the delusional take that Detroit is on Dallas's level. Bland is far better than Sutton. Parsons is better than any player on Detroit. Dallas has a much better roster than Detroit. Yes, I actually, for the whole show, I've been caping up for the Cowboys and that they're better and that they have a better defense. When I was comparing Jared Goff and Dak Prescott, I was talking about offensively. I think that Gibbs and Montgomery is better than Pollard. I think the Lions' offensive line is better than the Cowboys' offensive line. I think the Lions' play caller in Ben Johnson is better than whoever's calling plays in Dallas. I just think the one area where it's kind of a wash is the weapons. But if you want to say that CD and the Cowboys have better weapons, be my guest. I'm not going to fight you on it. I just think it's similar. But the reality is that defensively, it's not close. Here's the thing, and I didn't mean to filibuster with that rant, but I'll answer the question. The Dallas Cowboys, if you would have told me coming into this season that they have the defensive player of the year on their roster.
And it's not Micah Parsons.
And you would have looked at the season that Micah Parsons is having up to this point, because he is having a defensive player of the year caliber season in his own right, but it's actually Deron Bland, because he is doing something right now which is historic. He literally set the record for most pick sixes in a season, and he has a lot of season left. He could maybe get 6 or 7 by the end of the year, but he has 5 pick sixes. Oh, and by the way, his passer rating allowed is under 30, which is insane, and he is the number 1 PFF rated corner in the entire NFL. Deron Bland is the defensive player is the runaway defensive player of the year.
Runaway.
The only way an edge rusher could get it is if one of them breaks the sack record. That's the only way. But that could happen too. We'll see.
I think Myles Garrett with 13 so far, he's the guy to me right now.
He could do it, and I can't hate you by that. I can't fault you for that.
For this one, Booner, let's take a look at the Cowboys schedule and see their wins. Let me address this, because I do this often, right? And you could look at their schedule, and I always poke fun. But 2 things can be true with this. A, the Cowboys have an easy schedule. B, they've taken care of bad teams.
They haven't trailed for literally a second at home this year.
Not a
second.
We could say, and I agree with you guys, well, they played garbage teams. I say it to Sam all the time on the show. I always go at him for it. But they actually destroy the bad teams, which, they lost to the Cardinals. Okay, cool. And that was gross. I'm not even trying to defend the Cowboys, but I'm just saying.
At least that shit was on the road.
Yeah.
Not at home.
So, again, we could talk about their schedule, and they lost to the Cardinals. they destroy bad teams, which the Lions, they got to get back to that. I mean, they should have destroyed the Bears and the Packers. But regardless, what else you got for us, Lucas?
No, shout out Matt Broder down in the locker room after the game. But a bright spot that we can pull away from yesterday is Sam Laporta, and he was not happy. I mean, he was being real with Broder, but this is what he had to say. I believe it's 3 videos, and here we go.
It's a tough pill to swallow. I mean, when you see the opportunity and you realize that you had it, and unfortunately you didn't capitalize on it, it stings a little bit. Every game is tough. There's great players on every team. It doesn't matter the record. It doesn't matter if you're playing on Thursday, Sunday, Monday. You can really throw all those things out the window. If you don't show up, be really detail-oriented and give your best effort, then you're not going to have a chance. Coming down the home stretch, we're looking to play our best football in December coming up. And of course, a lot more division opponents as well. We got Minnesota twice still, Chicago again. So we're looking forward to those opportunities. We just got to capitalize on it.
So the thing that I took away there is Sam Laporta said the Lions are looking to play their best football in December. Do you guys think that will be the case? Obviously, it can only go up from here. Hopefully. Realistically, it's only going to go up from here. But what do you guys just take away from his statements?
And that's what I want people, and a lot of people do understand. If you watch the show often, you get it. If there's a bad loss for the Lions, of course, the day after, we're going to get some things off our chest. But for me, the outlook on the season hasn't changed. Do I think they go in the division? Yes. Do I think they can win a playoff game? Yes. What does change, and now I'm curious now with other teams starting to win, is that number 1 seed. That is changing for me. The Dallas Cowboys all of a sudden are tied with you. Remember, a couple games ago, we're at least I was and Lucas was we were crapping on the Dallas Cowboys like, man, they're 6-3 at that point. And now
sniffing the Sam Howell upset.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
45-10. Hey, he balled out though.
He did.
I'm not going to compare.
He didn't ball out. He was fine.
Dude,
he didn't ball out.
Think about it. He's basically in his rookie season. His pocket awareness, his accuracy, his power to throw on the run.
He's been sacked the most in the NFL.
That man, you want to talk about a guy who's like going to face some adversity early in his career and going to turn out to be great. It's Sam Howell. Sam Howell is that dude.
That's fine. He's had a much better year than I expected under a lot of adverse conditions, but you can't say that he balled out. He looked impressive at times, but
for a guy that gets sacked the most in the league, like the most, like by a pretty good margin.
Another 300-yard game. First one the Cowboys let up all year.
But regardless, though, my expectations for the Lions have not changed. Yes, I'm getting things off my chest that are frustrating, absolutely frustrating. But I'm not going to go as far to say they're a bad team. Like, it's a bad stretch of football. But I do think, fingers crossed, they're getting over this thing. I think offense will go back to what they've been doing. And again, at some point, this pass rush, they got it. They got to get home. We saw it against the Packers on the road. They showed they can do it, but at home they were invisible.
Yeah.
They were absolutely invisible.
I'm gonna say that they will turn it around, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards scared, not stoked at this point because that defense. I'm not saying that it's been horrendous these last couple of games or this season, but it kind of is what it is at this point. I mean, obviously, if James Houston and C.J. Gardner-Johnson can come back, that might give him a shot in the arm. But as of right now, I hate to say it, but that schedule down the stretch looks a lot tougher, and there's a lot more that these teams facing them have to play for than we initially thought. So I expect them to lose a couple more games, but still win the division.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you still expect them to win the division and win at least a playoff game?
I think yes, because if they don't, it's a failure of a season.
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you got to win a playoff game, and because I think they'll win the division. I know right now it's getting interesting, but I still have confidence. I mean, they're the best team in their division. Mm-hmm. You lose to the Packers, but they'll be all right. Let's go to break here. When we come back again. It's almost 10, but we're going to go over. Get your questions, your statements, everything on your mind ready. We'll try to read as many as we can before we close out the show here. But first, we got to hear about our friends from
Feldman.
Feldman. All right, let me tell you about them. That's me, Feldman Chevrolet. Detroit's #1 Chevy dealer, 18 locations. Of course, there's a Feldman dealership in your backyard. Visit FeldmanAuto.com to find the location nearest to you. You can catch us in Woodward Sports live from Feldman Chevrolet in Novi every other Monday.
Brace yourselves, Detroit. As the sun begins to set, 2 of Woodward Sports' brightest young stars will be taking the mic for a brand new show. Woodward Nights with Boner and Broder. The dog days in Detroit are over, and the boys are unleashed. Join in on the banter and hop on the bandwagon of the #1 night show on the internet. Tune into the Woodward Sports YouTube channel every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. Woodward Nights with Boner and Broder.
Savor the heart of home at Big Boy with our all-new down-home comfort dishes. Feast on home-style goodness with our Southern Comfort Chicken Bowl, veal parmigiana, and apple pie hotcakes. The down-home delight doesn't stop there. Potato pancakes are back. Dive into the richness of our perfectly crafted potatoes with our classic potato pancakes and our stuffed potato pancakes. Top off your meal with our new gingerbread shake, a seamless blend of creamy vanilla and sweet gingerbread flavors. Nothing beats the comforting taste of down-home cooking. Enjoy every bite, only at Big Boy.
Now, coming to Woodward Sports, Woodward and Main Street, the Woodward Sports Network Detroit Lions show. Let's go! Catch Gabrielle D. Phillips, Matt Broder, and Terry Foster for all the latest news on your Detroit Lions every week. Only on the Woodward Sports Network YouTube channel and woodwardsports.com.
Let me tell you about our friends over at Les Stanford really quickly, because what happens when you run a great business for 50 years? You expand and offer more products to more people. That is exactly what Les Stanford has been doing by adding Les Stanford Buick GMC, the same great service that customers have come to know and trust on Woodward Avenue, just south of the 9 Mile. Check out Les Stanford in Dearborn today. Find the brand you want at lesstanford.com. All right, it's time. Let's get to mailbag / just venting session. I'm going to try to get to as many comments as I can. If I miss it, I'm sorry. We'll try to start with who's been asking these first. Let's go up a little bit here. Okay. Let's see. Jeremiah says Detroit is definitely a contender, but they have to get back to the basics they've had earlier this year. Okay, that's fair. Eduardo says, mailbag, the way this team is built, if our offense doesn't play close to 100%, chances are we lose. No way we can compete with any team with a worthwhile defensive line. I don't think he's off base there. There's a lot of pressure on this offense. That's why I keep bringing up turnovers, because I know it's simple, but it's true. If your defense is playing the way they've been playing at times, spotty, bend don't break, turnovers are like killers. They just are, especially with how much you have to rely on this offense.
Especially when they're deep in your own territory. And that's why we can count as they turned the ball over 3 times technically, but that fake punt was probably the costliest besides for the fumble 6, but besides for that was the costliest turnover of them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
The fake punt.
It was. Matt Nichols, St. Brown dismissing the Packers defense before the game showed where the Lions mentality was before the game. It was very concerning. Dismissing the Packers defense? Are you talking about the podcast, him and his brother? I think if you're talking about that, I think it's all like, that's not as serious as people may think. But I don't know what he means. I didn't see anything before the game that he was dismissing their defense. I wouldn't say it's a concern with the Lions mentality. I think Dan, you typically has these guys
execution.
Locked in. It's more so the details, the execution. It is what it is. Brandon Katz says Detroit missed Jonah Jackson a lot yesterday. Yeah, they did.
That's fair.
The price went up for Jonah Jackson. That's for sure. Matt Nichols, mailbag. Brad Holmes has made 5 D-line picks of his 23 draft picks. Have they been bad picks, or has there been poor development?
Aleem and Hutch are good picks.
I don't think you can say poor development, because at the beginning of the season, and that's why I think it's come back down to earth. A lot of these players were playing above their ceilings, and I think it has a lot to do with the the positional coaches. But then I think at some point, it's going to come back down to earth, and I think that's what we're seeing as Lions fans right now. Even that defense last year was going crazy, and we can all see that it's not the most talented defense in the world. At some point, this defensive personnel is going to return back to earth.
Martin
Matt Nichols says, Jeff, in a press conference, St. Brown said he couldn't name a single player on the Packers defense. Yeah, that ain't good. That's bulletin board material.
And they've got some dudes, too. Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, those are...
Jair was out yesterday, bro.
Yeah, he was.
That was the most mind-boggling part about it.
No Rasul Douglas, Jair's out.
Hey, shout out Corey Ballantyne, a guy that I mentioned.
Jesus,
my
man.
God.
I did
say... They didn't really
him.
do their thing, though.
I know.
300 yards.
I did mention...
Just a fan says, mailbag, you still an AG fan, boys? Well, I'll say, and I said this earlier, AG deserves some blame. If you think this man is perfect, he is a human being. There's things you could definitely critique, but at the other point, I do agree with the personnel. I was on that. You guys know how I felt. Go get help at the deadline. Go get another pass rusher. He didn't. We'll see how that trends. But this defense, if you look at the talent, there's a lot of guys I like Kirby. These guys are up and coming, but no one's arrived. Aiden is having a little bit of a slump here, but I think Aiden's, again, we talk about, he's probably the last guy you're worried about. There's a lot of things I'm worried about with this defense. So I think AG deserves blame. But man, the personnel, that's on Brad too. We got to get help.
He can't go out there and line up and put pressure on Jordan Love. At the end of the day.
Like, can he scheme some things up? He started sending linebackers in the second half. Derek Barnes and Anzalone got home. They were getting pressure, but still, like, it's both. It really is.
I mean, the Aaron Glenn discussion is an interesting one. I don't want to get too deep into this because the more this season goes along, the more I'm seeing fire Aaron Glenn posts, which they were back. They came out of the woodworks after this in full force. The more I start to kind of see why Easy blindly defends the Glenn. I don't agree with that, by the way, but here's the reality. When you even look at yesterday's game, 2 of the touchdowns were off of a fumble 6 and an extremely short field, like a 25-yard touchdown drive. That matters. It matters that in the Seahawks game, one of the touchdowns was a pick 6. That also matters. It matters that against the Bears, one of the touchdowns was off of a short field caused by a Craig Reynolds fumble. And, oh, by the way, the Jared Goff threw the ball to the Bears 3 times, and on those 3 drives, the Bears were able to generate 3 points. So Aaron Glenn's defense does deserve some criticism, but it's clear that they don't have the personnel of like the Eagles, the 49ers, or the Cowboys. And it's also clear that the Lions in certain games has put the defense in some incredibly difficult spots, and for the most part they have stood up to some extent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just looking for some more. I know a lot of people are chiming in.
There's a lot of shit about. I've seen a lot about the Kirby thing, which I haven't seen anything about.
Glad you brought that up.
The chat's saying, and if you guys can explain it more in the chat, because I didn't see it at all, but it was basically saying that Kirby at some point during the game was going off.
Here it is.
Bly. There you go.
Alysius Daniel says, mailbag, Kirby getting heated on the sidelines with CJ, Houston, and Dre Bly, and I get that the game wasn't going our way, and he is a competitor, but to go off on teammates is kind of wild. Thoughts? I don't know the full context. I mean, this is football, man. Mm-hmm. Like, if Kirby's chirping at teammates, like, I'm not going to say he's a toxic teammate or anything like that. I mean, if C.J. Gardner-Johnson's getting in to Kirby Joseph and calling him out and saying things, I actually applaud that. I don't mind some tension as long as it doesn't carry over. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not something, and I don't think it will. So I don't want to react to it. I didn't see it. I was at the game. I was more paying attention to the game. I didn't look on the sidelines. So I don't know. But I wouldn't overreact to that and think, it's time to panic because the players are arguing. That's good. They care.
No,
they give a shit.
I think it has everything to do with the competitor. Kirby did not want to lose that game. And it's probably CJ and Dre trying to just tell him hey, calm down. He's probably no, I'm not going to fucking calm down type of deal. And it's just, it's part of the game, I think. Kirby has never been an issue as far as chemistry, and I don't think he's going to start to be after that.
Chuck Brewer says, mailbag, when does Ben's play calling get questioned at all?
Guys. I don't get. Go ahead.
I just think, and I would say this: if you want to nitpick Ben, like you definitely could. You can nitpick a lot of people, a lot of offensive and defensive coordinators. You definitely can, but Ben Johnson can't prevent Jared Goff from fumbling 3 times and losing all 3. Like, I'm sorry. So in the offensive line for not blocking like that. The turnovers, I can't look at Ben and say, and the turnovers to me have been the biggest problem with this offense. So I'm not going to go to Ben Johnson and say it's play calling. You could give a little bit of blame, but no, I'm not going to go and say it's Ben's fault.
All right, so I've wanted to call Chuck Brewer out on this for a very, very long time. Chuck Brewer, why do you have Ben Johnson derangement syndrome at this point? Because I have never seen you criticize Dan Campbell. I have never seen you criticize Brad Holmes. I've never seen you criticize Jared Goff. I've never seen you criticize a single player on the defense or the offensive line. But for some reason, and oh, by the way, if you want to go to the Pistons, I've never seen you criticize Troy Weaver. I've never seen you criticize any of the players. But I've never seen you criticize Steve Yzerman. But for some reason, for some godforsaken reason, you always take shots at Ben Johnson. I get it. Ben Johnson isn't perfect. He's made some questionable decisions himself, but at the same time, Ben Johnson is one of the reasons why the Lions are here, why they're here right now. Ben Johnson being elevated in 2021 kind of made the offense run very, very smooth the rest of the year. A complete turnaround when it came to Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. When it came to last year, they were a top 5 offense. When it comes to this year, even though they played a poor game, they're still going to be a top 10 offense going into New Orleans. I just don't understand why for you it's like open season on Ben Johnson every single time, but I've never seen you criticize anybody in any sport besides maybe like Al Avila or somebody like that, but that's obvious. Stop it, Chuck Brewer. Stop it.
And Chuck says, he put some context down. He says, not all on him, but we went away from the running game. And he also says, Ben Johnson walks on water, according to many. He's not perfect. And that's fair. There's all, this is for everything, Jared, AG, Ben. I mean, there's people that are on one side where these people can never do no wrong, and I think there's a middle ground. And Chuck, I wouldn't go the Ben Johnson route, but again, they did get away from the run game. But when you get down quickly, things get hard and you get predictable. So it is what it is. Lions got to play better. We're going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys. Sorry for all the questions I did miss. Please, we tried to go over. We're over almost 10 minutes. So hopefully the bosses don't watch this one. But hey, we'll see ya. Appreciate you guys, man. Have a great weekend. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving despite what happened yesterday, man. All that matters is being with your family. That was number one. So hope all is well. Thank you guys for tuning in, allowing us, and again, many of you to get your frustrations out on this Friday. Let's move on. Get to next week. We'll break a couple more things down, but it's on to the Saints. Lions got to win that one. Sam Flannel, my partner in crime. Appreciate you, bro. JB, voice of reason. Hey, JB. I let you down today. I didn't let you cook today.
Dude, it is completely okay.
I'm good, a lot of emotions are flowing through.
I'm good. We got a lot of emotions going on today. It's a terrible loss we had to witness, and now I don't know. I just don't know.
JV, the voice of reason.
Just disappointed.
Yeah, not mad, disappointed. Lucas Klotz, my guy. Appreciate you. You're the GOAT. You're the freaking GOAT. All right, guys, we'll get out of here. See you later. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you Monday. Don't forget, rest of the programming here on Woodward Sports. Check it out. Deuces.